be late, so the invitation would be to those assembled who wish to join in the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then, that time is 6:02. I will call the special session December 7th meeting of the Milton Budget Committee to order. First on the agenda would be roll call, seating members to determine a quorum is present. For those of you who do not, who are in the audience, not already part of the school district, we have our new secretary. This is, I think, your third time around for us. Would you please start with your name?
Sherry Gazer.
Sean Perot.
Andrew Ross, and Selectman's Rep.
Peg Hurd, School Board Rep.
Bob Carrier.
Larry Brown.
Aaron Hutchings.
Stan Nato.
Dennis Lang.
And for those of you who can see somewhat in the rear, starting with Superintendent.
Earl Sussman, School Superintendent.
Nathan Castle, Financial Manager.
Melissa Brown, School Board Member. Laura Noseworthy, School Board Member.
Paul Steele, School Board Member.
And a back row, we at least hear your voices for who is here from the school district. Name.
Jan Radowitz from Newton Middle High School. Melissa Teen, Special Education.
Bob Adams, Facilities.
John Safina, Principal, Milton Elementary.
Jim Eldridge, Transportation.
Evening. Okay. Then the second order of business is the initial school district budget presentation. And we have just finished off, I will say, tentatively putting to bed the town budget, which came in under the default number. It was faced with three major drivers: the cost of the new fire station, which was approved last year, the employee retention programs put in place by the police department and for DPW. As the school district knows, the state is also decreasing and downshifting the cost of the common retirement system. All those things together had an effect on the town budget. You don't have a new firehouse to work with, but we'll start. How do you wish to do the presentation to the budget?
Okay, I think firstly, one of the important things to note is that when you compare last year's school budget to this year's school, we are down. There is a decrease from last year to this year. It's $15,000 less than last year. So that budget that we had approved by the board and the committee and the town, the budget that we're proposing to you tonight is $15,000 less from budget to budget. In addition, as you can see, the default is down 2. And if you open up your books, you can see where that is down. It's right on the front page under items. So right there, the default budget is $77,441 below what the school what it is. So the decrease of the budget to budget is 0.14%, and the default is below that as well. Think as you begin to look at this, some of the important things to bear in mind. Right on page 1, where you see the employees, because I know from last year, you folks did a great job going line by line and looking at the main areas. And I remember Stan Mr. Wing, some of you asked some very good questions last year. You all did, but I kind of remember both of them asking some very good ones. The first three lines, where you can see the pay of the elementary, the middle, and the high school. I think that's important to note that with the 2-year contract that the staff received that was approved by the taxpayers last year, it came out to probably $92,000. Despite that, that's included in this. We're like $25,000 below. And you're probably saying, where's the magic hat? You know, how'd you pull that off? How did we give the employees a raise, but yet decrease in the total amount that is being there? One of the main reasons is our ELO coordinator, our Extended Learning Opportunity Coordinator at the middle high school, left the district, and instead of replacing Fern, who, as you know, did an extraordinary job, Howie D-R-O-I-L-T, he moved into that position. And the way that happened was this. In the 7th and 8th grade, they had rotations of 5. 5 people rotated. And there's approximately 80 to 88 students. So in looking at it, I worked with the guidance department, and I said, why can't we have 4? Why do we need 5? So Mr. Drillette moved into the ELO, so we didn't have to replace her. And right there, I think we saved like $74,000 right there. So when people leave the district and you don't replace them and you restructure, there is where you can gain. So again, the same idea we talked about last year was that doing more, less staff. So we had a reduction in staff. So therefore, with that reduction, there's a net loss. Also, we made every attempt where other people left the district to have people that didn't have as many years of experience to fill those spots. So there were like 2 or 3 other positions where we made every attempt. We hired some great folks, but you get somebody at the 3rd step rather than the top step, you're ahead in the game. So we broke, except for one position, every other position we gained in the amount that we spent on the person that left versus what we spent on the person that we hired. But yet, maintain some very great folks. So it takes hard work and it takes creativeness. So when you have a movement in staff, it's an you can really gain that way. So looking ahead, I'm looking at other creative ways to move on with that. And not to take away from our further discussions, but one of the other things I'm looking at for next year is possibly sharing staff with area schools. So where we scrutinize the enrollment in certain areas, we look at the enrollment. I've already begun discussions with other schools and said, where is it that we could share staff so that instead of paying for a full person, we're only paying for half of them. But that is not going to be at the expense of students. Where it can be done in a cost-effective way, it's going to be done. So that's the answer of one of the answers, in addition to the administrative staff in our BA and the school board really it might look like bare bones, but students are still getting what they need, and we still have after-school program at MES, which is enhanced in the budget. So I'm sure as you go through the budget, you're going to ask us a question, why is that line more? So again, in saving money and being cost effective, we restructured some of that money, reinvested it in our students in the school, and the other is flat and below being flat. So we can go from there. I know you have a lot of questions for us, but that gives you an overview of where we are and why we are where we are.
Good. Thank you. That last night, where did Sean go? Bob Carrier had a couple of detailed questions which skipped through the pages that we had, and Sean said, let us begin at the beginning. So with that background for how staff positions have been changed, if we would just do one more thing, which is define rotation as it affects the 80 students versus the 88 for the five positions down to 4. And in terms of any other third-party structural changes that are out of your control, like state and federal financing, the relationship with the state, with the New Hampshire State Education Department, anticipated changes in Medicaid, and anticipated changes in federal policy. Do those enter into this budget? So the first question would be, what is a rotation of 4 compared to a rotation of 5?
Okay, rotation of 4 compared to a rotation of 5. If there's 88, children in there, instead of having 18 in a class, for example, there's 21, 21 or 22.
Done.
So basically, just doing it in your head, if there's about 40 kids at each, in 7th grade, 8th grade, and there's 80 kids, dividing them by 5 or dividing them by 4, you still have a great class size.
Right, good, thank you. Okay, then we have a beginning on page 1. How does the committee wish to proceed? Would you like the are you going to be the primary spokesman for describing this?
Yes.
Line by line?
And then I'll defer in that the folks took the night out to join, so let them chime in.
That I tend to run fairly informal. When someone says, Mr. Chairman, I still look around for the grown-up. If you have as principal or other person, Tim, in terms of transportation, if you have a point to make in process as the superintendent goes, please. And Stan is always comfortable asking a question. Cool?
Is that good or bad?
That's good. So beginning then with the general fund, the 1100s, regular education, you have spoken indirectly to elementary, middle school, high school, and the para salaries. So it's yours to make any comment, the committee to make any question. We have for example, we have elementary, middle, and high school substitutes. I would put the question, is that a figure which has stayed constant? Are you finding that teachers are more regular in their attendance? Are you driven by a small pool of substitutes available?
There's a small pool, but it seems to be fairly consistent, and with a certain set of staff, you never know where events will occur where people will become ill. So, but we've been consistent in terms of having it all kind of come out in the long run.
Then that just briefly, if you could just say that the elementary teacher health, the support health, teachers health, health and dental represent nominal increases. Peg, you're part of this. You've had more experience with how our questions go. You can add any comment you wish.
All right, I think Nate can speak to the increases. Health insurance went up
7%.
7%. 7.8. I was going to say I thought it was 8, and then dental went up.
2.3.
Okay. And then if we had a decrease, I'm assuming we went from some people having a family. Let you talk about the health insurance,
the
please.
health insurance is at the increases with what we currently have for staff and what they currently take as insurance.
And again, if you look at middle school, high school health, it's a function of less people receiving it. So if you have a reduction in staff, it not only shows up in what people are paid, but their health insurance and whatever else as well. So the fringe costs for an employee, sometimes you can almost say it's a third. So if you make X amount, so the same is true. So we're saving in their pay, and we're also saving in their health because they don't exist.
Does the district have a single source, like through Delta dental or dental insurance? Is that something that is bid out year by year?
It's bid out, but it's not year by year. It's every few years.
Every 2 years. Oh.
Every few, like 3 or 4.
Okay. Then my presumption is that anything on the cost of disability insurance is a state contract, is a state cost based, or is that a private?
Yeah, it's based on salary, and that percentage went up 0.05%.
Okay. Who is the provider of the disability insurance?
Disability, Boston Mutual.
I'm sorry.
Boston Mutual.
Boston. Sorry. Thank you. And then down in terms of the FICA, which will be automatic by percentage, the retirement is based on a state participation rate. It dropped from what to what?
Well, over last year it stayed the same. It's at 17.36% for a teacher, and it's 11.38% for support.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then again, you look down, you see middle school and high school about 8 lines to the end, and that's actually gone down. And the reason it's gone down is the force has gone down, the labor force has gone down. So, like I said, when you restructure, the personnel cost is pretty redundant in terms of not only the pay but the fringes.
Okay. Now, for that, down at the bottom of page 1, there's the English is the second language? ESOL?
Yes.
Okay. And community partners, which is your contract provider for behavioral health services, or what are they doing? Community partners.
They assist us with students that are needing help in the ESOL, that as students transfer in that need that. In a small school like this, if you have 3 or 4 students, let's say hypothetically, transfer in, and you only have 2 students that have it right now, suddenly you have 5 or 6 students, it has a tremendous effect. So therefore, the ESOL, we have, like you had said at the beginning, Larry, there are certain things you have no control over that you have to offer.
Yeah.
So that is a function the percentage goes up, the amount goes up, because you go from 2 to 6 in a large school, it wouldn't skew the statistic as much.
Would you please define North Star? I have forgotten.
That is assistance for the children. I can have someone's, they don't start.
Yeah, maybe Melissa?
No.
Okay, North Star is a dropout prevention program. There's a social worker that works with a few students. I forget what her exact caseload number is, but works with students on building alternative plans if necessary. Just basically dropout prevention. And then another service that comes with that program is in the spring or the winter, they offer a course, usually an English or a math class, for students who need credit. And that's been a really successful course for students who require those credits or are at risk of dropping out.
Okay. Thank you. So I guess then the tie-in is to keep your eye on the long-term, high-up goal. Thank you.
I just have one question.
Bob Carrier.
On the health insurance, this will probably cover everything for the teachers. Is there a buyout in there?
Yes.
Okay, is that included in that figure?
Yes.
Okay.
I had just a comment, just looking over this regular education, knowing that personnel costs are pretty much out of anybody's control. I'm actually quite impressed by the bottom line of the regular education numbers. The fact that you knocked down $43,000 and yet adding to that all these additional, the learning, the digital resources, books, the equipment, supplies, and so knocking down $43,000, I think that's actually quite impressive.
Well, the staff has worked very hard.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis. They have worked very hard.
Then that brings us to page 2 and 3, which is, did I just miss a page?
Sorry, I have a couple quick questions.
Yes, Sean.
More informational than anything. How many teachers are in each of the schools?
Total staff is 45, 50, and yes, total staff.
Total
For the
staff.
teaching staff, or is that every department?
Well, there's the classroom teachers, which is about, we have 2 teachers per grade, so 10, or 12, 13, and then we have one with, it's about 14 teachers, 14, 15 teachers, then we have a Title I teacher. We also have an ESOL teacher, we have special ed case managers who also do instruction. We have different staff in different categories.
You know what will help you is there's a chart right in the book here.
Page 21.
Okay.
Just all staff.
There's my book right now.
No, but that's a very good question. No.
That was the problem.
Yes, Sean did put his finger on a problem. Not on a, he addressed a point that's different than putting his finger on a problem. And that is the way the school district is structured with staff who serve both elementary, high school, and special ed. It is hard to have 7 people doing this, 5 people doing that, and a social worker who does only this. In an ideal world, I would like to have an exact head count of number of teachers, total teacher salary, total health insurance package, total para employed, total health package, and total for administration and total for support. And as we find that, I will start smiling more. That
Page 21, 22, and 23.
Yes.
It has
right after 21.
Yeah.
But
I think what you're looking for is on those pages, you're looking at what the whole person is paid, the total compensation.
This is everyone in the district.
And I will start smiling more. But for the moment, we are on page 2 and 3. I would like Dennis, Stan, Aaron, Bob, Peg, Andy, and Sean, questions that you may have regarding either the definitions or how the supplies or how the travel is used, what digital resources represent, the replaced equipment, things that may catch your eye as a peculiar or different expense. Bob Carrier.
Looking under the middle supplies and high supplies, what's allocated to high school and one's allocated to the middle school? One is less amount, the other one's just up a little bit. What is that for?
Jan?
We moved it from middle school to high school. So high school has a greater need next year. So that's why you see that the middle school is less than it was and the high school is higher than it was.
Okay.
And I wish to point out that she has really done a very concise job of really elaborating on each course. And that was a good question you brought up, Bob, because she's really delineated what's in the middle school, what's in the high school, what exactly isn't like a blanket amount that the science department is getting X amount of money, and then they can kind of figure out where it goes.
Well, I've never seen it before, that's why I had to ask.
You were pretty astute with that.
Okay.
The one thing that I would like to point out, I mean, it's not a question because I know it, but the high public tuition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, students are taking classes at Great Bay for college and high school credit, which I think is phenomenal and really provides an absolutely awesome opportunity for these kids. So I wanted to point that out.
It's important because we want to show that with the budget, we're also dealing with the other opportunities for students as well. That's wanting to accelerate.
Okay. A particular point or question, moving down through digital learning resources, and which apply to music, Spanish, French. You can read that as easily as I. And then the digital resources for sports and entertainment marketing. Would someone speak to what that is in terms of an academic, let me use the word, interface with future life?
It's students that are interested in business and specifically marketing. We don't currently have any textbooks or resources for that class, so she's been kind of big barring, stealing, and creating things, so we are trying to get a textbook for her to use for that class.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Anything else, a question on the, does that really say middle school furniture fixing? The repairing stuff that is still useful? What is the fixes?
Fixtures, not fixing.
Fixtures. Okay.
As far as the equipment and high school books and digital resources, middle school books and digital resources, what did you have to give up or not include that you really actually want to have in there? I'm just curious.
I cut down on supplies. There were books, so different areas buy books each year, so people, math doesn't buy a math book every year. So basically we prioritized who was going to need the books for this coming year versus who ordered what books last year. Plus I also looked at where I could save in the supply line.
That was what I meant. That was what I meant before. She's actually kind of a wheel concept and looking at where you are rather than just saying, you had it last year, so you got the same chunk of money again. So kind of a wheel thing, just like in sports, every year the team gets new suits or whatever.
And And the algebra books are actually, we're trying to get a full classroom set for both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Right now, we don't have a book for every student in the class.
They would ideally be sequential from the same author?
Correct.
Set?
Same publisher, yes.
Okay. Any other question? I'm taking discussion on that topic through page 2 to the total for the 1100 line for regular education we have the actual fiscal year 18 budgeted and the proposed. Are there any question on that you wish to review before we go into the minefields of special education? Bob Carrier.
On the top one, where it's second line, middle computer equipment, is this phasing out? You haven't got nothing?
It's not phasing out. We actually were able to use some grant money to purchase some of the equipment that we needed.
Okay, where's the grant coming from?
It's the SIG grant.
The SIG grant, okay.
Right.
Okay, well, go ahead,
Yeah.
Larry.
Would you, in your accounting system, are you required to keep the line open with $1 in it for the eventuality?
We probably should, because the grant's going to end this year.
We discussed.
He's shaking his head no.
As long as there's at least $1 in the fund itself.
Oh, okay, so
Is what
it's
counts.
derived from the general.
You'll see some of them have dollars in the lines.
Mhm.
No rhyme or reason. It's just, it was there, so I just threw it in.
Mhm.
But technically, as long as there's $1 in each function, or at least $1 in the function, you're all set.
Yes, okay.
Just have one moment, Chairman.
Yes, Bob.
The next line, replacement equipment, is that based on the same thing on the computers? That's the next line
I
down.
don't think that was on computers, no.
Okay, but this one here is, well, it looks like it's also nothing in it.
The first one is supposed to just be computer equipment, because if you look down 2 more, that's the replacement.
Yeah, okay. But this one line here, there's 15 and 16 was the last time any money was spent.
Oh,
It looks like the rest of the lines is all zeros. Is this going to be?
just to interrupt slightly, Tom McDougall, who said he was coming along, has come. While Tom is getting himself set, what Nate was talking about would be the function line. A function would be something like equipment and supplies. Under that, you might have a line for football helmets, football shoulder pads. You would not have to have a line for football cleats. It would be presumed that it's covered by the function, and you could get cleats without having a special line for it. So, that we are on the top of page 3 of 20. We have just gone through discussion on regular education.
Larry.
Sean.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I looked through the book to make sure I didn't ask the question that was already in this nice packet. Do we know how many students are in each high school, middle school, grade school?
It's in there.
It is? I looked at the table of contents, it didn't mention it.
I remember reading it, Sean.
Yeah. Page
Somewhere.
26.
26.
36.
And that's the students is in November 23rd.
Awesome, thank you.
Then, if you were listening at home, the question was, do we know how many students there are? When these booklets are available at the district office?
You're going to have to make more.
We're going to have to make more.
We're making more first thing tomorrow.
If one person comes in particularly asking for one, I'm sure you will be able to get one. The Milton School District enrollment by grade, middle school, 257, 113 for the junior high school, 172 for Newt, a total of 542 students when this was done on 11/27/17. That brings us back to the end of our conversation regarding 1100, a regular education. Stan? Dennis? Neither. Then, who would like to speak to the main drivers, I will use the word, for the special ed program as it cuts across both elementary, middle, and high school?
Yeah, I can start and then Melissa Jean can join me. As you can see, again, she's spent a great deal of time in special education is down from last year. And as we discussed last year, and as you all know, the mandates are very great in this area. So despite those mandates, we went line by line and we sought every way we could to reduce the funding in there. So you can see that it is less, it is reduced from last year, despite the guidelines that we have to meet. Any key areas that you want to spotlight?
I mean, I looked at what we'd be needing for supplies and added some equipment lines because I can foresee some equipment purchases needed in the future. But overall, in special ed, it's very hard to predict. So we did our best to make those predictions as best we can.
A question. Do I remember the alphabet soup of BB as standing for Bright Beginnings?
Correct.
And would you define the age, range, and services for Bright Beginnings?
So Bright Beginnings is currently a special education preschool that services children ages 3 through 5 until they go to kindergarten. Next year, we may have a name change. We are transitioning to an early childhood program, which will not impact the costs, but will have a different program.
Mm-hmm.
She has spent a great deal of time, and we've had many discussions regarding students in and out of school placements. And that's another goal, endeavor, the restructuring that we're doing. We're further looking at the possibility of an alt-ed, further alt-ed opportunities to do within our school. But again, not to add expenses, but to do it in a cost-effective way. To see where existing staff might leave again, look at the specific needs of the students, understand thoroughly what those specific needs of those students in the out-of-school placements are. Much like a coach understands who's on their team, and then they use them according to the material that they have. One of the other things that has been talked about, and we've taken a great deal of time, Mr. Safina and Melissa Jean and myself and Nate, and we've looked at the partner program. And we keep looking at it and assuring ourselves from a cost-effective standpoint that is doing what we need to do. And we extrapolate out what it would cost if those students were not in our facility. You might want to explain a little bit about the partner program to them, and then we can talk about it a little bit and be proactive in our discussion, because you might hear about it, and at school board meetings we refer to it. So this gives you a little understanding of what the program is.
So the Partner program is sort of a school within a school. It's run by the New England Center for Children, and it primarily it was created to service the needs of students with autism, but it actually reaches more than just students with autism, because not all of our students in that program have autism. It's been a huge asset to the school community, dealing with difficult behaviors, communication. It basically helps us prevent students from being sent out of district. The best part about it, I believe, is it gives students the opportunity to be a part of the regular classroom as much as they are able to, whereas if they are sent out of district, typically their peers are all students with disabilities as well.
Right. And while you are on a roll, would you please give one more anagram and define ABA and how it fits?
Yep. So ABA is Applied Behavior Analysis. So that's the theory and the principle of how the program teaches students. They use behavior analysis where to solve difficult behaviors, challenging behaviors. What is the cause? What happened before and what happened after? What is the root of the behavior, basically? And so the tutors really understand that principle and can respond to behavior in a positive way, and also work to prevent it by analyzing the root of the behavior.
You mentioned before, and I guess I wasn't paying attention, right beginning. What exactly is that?
It's a special education preschool.
Preschool, because I'm looking this over, and that seems to be the one thing that's jumping out at me, is that all the costs associated with right beginnings. Whether it's the salaries, the FICA, insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Middle special ed and high special ed, I'm seeing one jump up by 100%, or yeah, by 100% basically, and one cut in half. What is basically doing transitioning, realigning teachers for the.
I'm sorry, Dennis, would you give the line numbers?
1,251.
Yeah, 142 and 143. Midway down on page 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it looks like, I'm assuming, if you look at it, you're doubling one and cutting the other one in half. Is that because you're transitioning, redirecting people to the needs, or has there been a change in size of?
Which ones are you looking at?
Yeah, we're not
Well,
sure.
Bright Beginnings is a 140 line is doubled, all right? That, I'm not sure if you're looking at that one.
Well, I asked about Bright Beginnings, but then I'm turning around and asking about middle sped and high sped support salaries.
If you look at page 32, it goes through and gives you a synopsis as to what the changes are.
Okay.
So again, as you see, another point come in on pages, I guess what are we, pages roughly 1 through 21, or whatever it is.
Does that help?
Yep.
Yeah. If you have a similar explanation that you have, basically engraved on your left eyelid, just mention it as well, so we can make that jumped on it. Thank you. Okay. Then that takes care of the applied behavioral analysis. We have the Bob Carrier.
I still have a question on that partnership. How many students are in there? Can we have in there at one
We
time?
can have 7. We currently have 5.
Okay.
And
I remember at one of the
yeah.
school board meetings, it was mentioned that you might be able to take somebody from out of district and bring them in, and it would kind of help the cost. hours to go down. Is
Bob,
that,
Bob, you're precisely right. We, both myself and Melissa, talked about that at the school board meeting, and we've gone out, she's gone out, and we've talked to, I've talked to some other school superintendents, and she's talked to some sped directors, and the board has been very proactive in it as well. So what we would do is if we had the seat open, we would sell the seat.
Right.
So it's like an airplane or a hotel. If the seat is open, not that we're gonna discount it, we're not gonna lose money on it.
Right.
If we are paying NEC, the New England Center for Children, for 7 seats, we're gonna try to assure ourselves that we are using the empty seats as well as we can. I'm glad you brought that up. I was about to embark on it. And that's why I think that the partner program is embedded in there. So, and also too, you can't have it both ways. Like the board looked very closely at the fact that the elementary and middle school, we didn't have money, additional funds in there for an outside placement. That is because we want to maintain the integrity of the partners. Because if we don't have the partners, then a student that is 100,000 or 150,000, even 200,000 pops up, we then are incurring the cost for them. So you really can't have it both ways. So then come April or May, when the numbers are clearer and we have an indication, Melissa's gone out and I've talked to Stratford Learning, and there's ways to piecemeal it perhaps, but problems arise because you have to have people highly trained in that area to deal with those student needs. So we have a plan. So at the current time, we're continuing with it, but we have a close eye on it, and we're ready to go in a restructured direction if it looks like it's going to meet the needs of the students in the district, and also because of that.
So if you're more crass, if your triage is dead on, you can make a buck by selling seat 7 off. With the size of our district and how one student is a tremendous percentage increase, you may wind up in a financial hole if your triage was off.
Correct.
Okay.
just to be sure though, that contract services, they'll pay somebody to teach them, if I'm reading this right, professional development, there's a technique. They will train somebody if somebody wants to be part of this partnership program?
So the NEC, New England Center for Children, provides the teacher that is very highly trained, and then we provide the ABA tutors, and New England Center for Children trains those ABA tutors. And it also comes with a curriculum, comes with family support.
And the BCBA.
That's right, excuse me. The board certified behavior analyst is also part of that program.
What the ABA comes out of is behavioral psychology research. There's a program called ABC, Antecedent Behavior Consequence, which was developed by Paul Brown, a Spring Valley High School class of 1960, doctoral program in psychology at New Paltz. So, small world. Then we are down to the support, health, dental insurance, dental. Any other question on page 3 before we move to page 4.5? Tom, have you had a chance to sort of get your bearings?
Yeah, I don't have anything right now.
Okay. Then,
So one thing I remember from
Yes, Sean.
this year, you know, we're looking at the sped budget and it was obviously substantially higher than we anticipated. But I was trying to like read this and kind of go through all the different data. I know it was said it's hard to anticipate, right? Because that's what happened last year. Like we didn't realize there were going to be like a half a dozen or whatever additional students. What's the feeling for this year though? Are we relatively certain that we wouldn't get a substantial increase? Because obviously the budget went down. I believe it was like 3%. Any major concerns on that happening again?
That's a very good point. There's always a concern.
Sure.
But we also, if need be, there's the fund that we have in one of the warrant articles will be to use some of the funds for that, the surplus funds. So we're cautiously optimistic that if need be, that would be where we would go, and that would involve additional taxation for the taxpayer.
And how do you predict if someone's going to move into town with a special needs child? How do you predict if a child is, an accident happens? Is there a way to?
I totally agree. I'm not saying,
Yeah, no.
well, actually, I'm trying to come from the other side, you know, being cautiously optimistic that the data and the idea that we have is going to be accurate. But obviously, you know, like how many students are in the SPED program? Whether it's like full-time or partial time?
We've had some movement lately, but it's over 100. I'm gonna take a stab at 110.
We're
Is
looking
100
at
out of
about
452?
22%.
Yes.
Interesting, all right.
High numbers.
20% of the school population?
Probably 22.
About 20, yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
But that is different needs, you know what I'm saying? It's not, but the board actually looked at that, and we're all thoroughly aware of that, but that fund hopefully is there, you know, hopefully we don't have to use it, but it is.
Yeah, I just recall, this is my first on the budget committee, and that number, it stands out when you look at the what's being spent, right?
I don't mean to be crude or crass, but is it because, that 20% because the definitions have changed over the years, or is there a significant, legitimate, but I don't recall, you know, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, being 20% population like that. Has the definitions changed over the years, or are they including more of the population, or how's that come about?
The definitions have not.
No, that's a very good question.
I'm sorry?
The definitions have not changed, at least since I've been in special ed, which is about 10 years. I'm not clear on why we're at this percentage, but I'm confident that each person who's identified requires that specialized instruction.
And 10, 15 years ago, I was in Rochester, the next town over, and we had about 25% special ed population.
I remember growing up as a kid 35, 40, 50, 100 years ago. We might have been talking about 10, 15%. Maybe.
You know, it's that, I know what you're saying, Dennis. For example, like, when I was young, speech, you know, as you can tell, I stutter. But I wouldn't be classified. So, but the level of assistance that you have doesn't mean they send you out or it's $100,000. Just means you would receive speech. You know what I'm saying? So all you need is one disability of any sort, and I don't want to be crude either, to become a statistic. So when you're talking about it, just like I used the stuttering example, there's a wide range of what the, you know, it may be a style in which you learn. All it's saying that for these students, their learning styles may not be the same. Maybe they're sequencing or whatever it is, but there's different levels of it in different needs that the students have. So it isn't that the 20 or 22%, it might be as simple as the style in which they learn.
That makes
Or
sense.
their speech defect.
But if you think about it, 20 years ago, how many children had autism as opposed to how many children in this day and age have autism? There is a change in as to why. There's so many different.
What clicked for me when he said style of learning, that's what clicked to me, because, yeah, there's a certain segment of kids learn totally different than the majority of kids.
And you really identify that, and over the course of time, you hope that with that intervention, whatever it is, that they declassify the student, so that as we go, and that's what we're trying to work at, a system where we're getting the students early on. Mr. Safina has been working very hard at the early grades to identify it and getting some of the things in, right? John, you might want to explain what you're trying to do down there to help the kids.
With
the early
special ed.
intervention, yeah.
With early intervention.
Yeah.
Well, we have an RTI program which is called WIN, What I Need. So when students are not doing well academically, we have an intervention program, and we are really looking at implementing interventions. They have to do intervention. We have an SAT, which is Student Assistance Team, that will meet and discuss students that are struggling and put interventions in place. And if they work, then we'll see growth. If they're not working, that's when we'll do a referral to special ed. So if a student isn't successful at first, we don't just say, oh, we need to cope. So we will do a lot of interventions first, which is in the regular ed realm before we pass it on to special ed.
Yeah. As a teacher, I mean, I've had examples over the years where probably my best one or worst one, I'm not sure, was doing a project and the kids had to tape construction paper together. And I'm, working with kids, and I look over and this boy has got one great big piece of tape all over the table because he did not know how to cut tape. And it never dawned on me. I mean, there was nothing really wrong with this kid, and I didn't know how do you teach a kid. So I referred him to occupational therapy, which really helped him, and it was a year-long process. At the end of the year, they had identified what he needed. He went to occupational therapy, and at the end of the year, not only was he cutting tape, but he was writing his name a lot better. So, again, for 1 year, he was receiving special ed services, but he was not a total special ed student. I've had other cases, too, where they need an intervention, but not for long. Let's see what we can do. How can we take care of this student to let them progress and become successful? And then they're, what did you call it, declassified?
Yeah.
Does that help, Dennis? That it's
Yeah, but, let the record note I was not laughing at Peg. The blushing was all my own. In 6th grade, Mrs. Ingram asked, "Did you not ever learn how to paste?" As I had made perfectly certain that photograph would never move from the piece of paper. So that many things happen, but there are so many things. You get an extraordinary number of chemicals. You get studies that show stressors that affected generations two behind you coming out of World War II. 40% of marine life now has glitter in it. It's incredible that anyone is here. Sorry for the diversion. We are down to the moving through elementary special ed contracted services. Any question?
Well, on
that or earlier?
On 1255-630-3, high sped tuition, non-public, a $70,000 increase, a little above that. Can you explain which of the listed made that jump like that? Is it SLC? Is that something new by itself, or?
Can you repeat the line?
The high-sped tuition non-public, 55,630-3.
That's the cost of sending one student out of district.
So,
Okay, but for what? Because you have SLC, Maplestone, and Mount Prospect.
what happened here was, last year wasn't appropriately budgeted. All of those students were there last year.
So it's more than one student.
Oh, yeah.
So your statement was incorrect then.
But that could be the cost of sending one student out of district as well.
Well, don't make a statement if it's not the fact, please. Because we don't, just tell, you're making me sound, I was gonna believe that it was gonna be one student was gonna cost us 70,000.
Excuse me, I misspoke, okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying, please, because
I said sorry.
Again, in this small district, the cost of residential placement and the cost of ancillary services, given the specifics of a single child, can easily reach $100,000. The accuracy of $87,283.37 may be wrong today, but the pattern of tremendous impact of one seriously hampered child is tremendous in a district of 542 students. I think that Melissa and Stan will agree on that. Onward. Stan's question was to the middle of page 5. Bob Carrier, I see your pen moving. Did you have a question?
yeah, one more on this.
Larry, can I ask a question? When you do,
Stan.
when you go by a number, could you give us the page number? Because it makes it easy for us to find it.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's not Stan. I'm Stan over here.
I look like him. I'm looking like you, Stan.
Yeah, I agree. That's Doug.
The chair, for the masterful control he has over this committee, notes your concern and passes it along. Peg,
No, we're waiting for Bob.
Waiting for Bob.
I just got one more on the partnership program. There's
And that page and number is, sir?
4, and it's almost on the very bottom where it says notes, the one above it. When does that catastrophic aid come into play?
The catastrophic aid is per student. So if you broke down the cost of the partner program per student, it's not very likely that we would reach that catastrophic aid level. But Ginny, our secretary in special ed, is entering all of the invoices for both our court place students and our high cost students, so that if we do reach that threshold, we will be getting some reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I did see it in the revenues that last year we got some money from catastrophic aid.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. I didn't know. I forgot the level you got to hit.
Yeah, it changes slightly every year, and I don't have it by memory.
I can't remember either. I know I saw it, but
I'd like to point out that her and the said assistants are working really hard. About a month ago, we got a check for medic, check back for $115,000. So, and the court order, placements, they're looking into that. So there are areas that maybe previously, you were asking some good questions, weren't fully exhausted. So they're turning over every rock to maximize what we can get back. So I think that we should make the committee aware of that.
I'm going by Ann Kepler, who gave me this last year. And this is not the revised one, I'm sure, but this is what I've been looking at and that's why the questions are coming out.
No, no, it's very good.
Okay, all right. Well, at least I didn't waste my time.
You're okay.
Okay. Tom, yes.
Looking on, again, page 4, line 53, 210, DB contracted services, and 53, 230 elementary spec contracted services. Are these services that can be shopped around? When was the last time we made sure that what we were contracting for, we were getting, the school was getting good return on the money, or is this something that's bundled as part of BB or something else? And you're just breaking it out in here. I'm thinking like contracting, like if you contracted the cleaning service, you can shop that around every couple of years, make sure you're getting a good deal. Are these items that can be shopped around like that? And if so, when was the last time they were shopped around to make sure that the district was getting what was good value for the money?
I think, well, you can answer, but it's constantly being done, and that's what I was elaborating before I kind of went into great length about the partner program, and we looked at how we could piecemeal it, not necessarily fully out of neck, and look at SLC, the Stratford Learning Center, and as much as the revenue, that's a valid point. You might want to discuss that. She's doing it almost on a daily basis.
We're a member of Stratford Learning Center, which is an organization that is run by local school districts who require these services, and it's really difficult to obtain these services, especially speech therapy and physical therapy. And so we've been working with Stratford Learning Center for years. Being a new director, I have not shopped around, but I don't anticipate that we would get a better rate than what we're getting through Stratford Learning Center.
Okay, so it sounds like they're not necessarily services that are, especially being we're not like in the middle of Boston, where you may have lots of OT specialists, where you may have lots of speech therapists. You know, probably few and far between up here in Milton.
Correct.
So okay, so they're not necessarily services that are easy to you know, every couple of years, let's say, let's renew our contract for 3 years or whatever. Okay.
And one of the other areas, as I said before, was the shared service. You know, you don't want to really pick up, if you don't need somebody full-time, you don't want them full-time. And if you're only going to need them half-time, if Farmington needs someone half-time, then you look at what the fringes are going to cost. But when we get the contract with SLC, they already embed the fringes in the health insurance. So we're sharing that fringes with all of the other places that they go to. But of course, we're paying Stratford Learning kind of like a middleman cost that they're getting the employee kind of. But the point is, we are looking at the other avenue, which is kind of a new way to look at the shared service. And we're doing that. Bob is also looking at when he bids out for things with Farmington. We're looking at every possible area. You know, we share the football team with them. Next year we're looking at our girls, you know, some things in sports. So, but hopefully when we come back to you next year, the number is still low, and part of the solution is because we've come up with some shared creative ways along the lines of what you're talking about.
And I think that Nate will probably remember more accurately than I. I think it was September 2 years ago, there was a speech pathologist for about $90,000. That person did not materialize, and it went to what I would call a black swan, a captive market of about 116,000, because it was such a rarefied market and the position had to be filled.
Yep. They have for the day before. She said on the
24 hours. From my left hand end, I am on pages 4 and 5. We've moved down from the discussion of the Stratford Stratford Learning Center. We've got travel, supplies, books. Tom had the comment about how you try to bid out unless you're dealing with a very rare service that has to have credential A, B, and C. That takes us down to the middle school special ed new equipment, and I have just turned to pages 6 and 7, unless there was any other question on 4 and 5. On page 6, if someone would speak to what this Spark program is, and also always, since computer equipment, both as a teaching aid, computer equipment as a documentation of expenses, are both computer equipment. If you could just speak to how computer equipment and what the Spark program is. Melissa, either you, Superintendent?
We have not had the Spark program since I began working here 2 years ago.
Okay, so that's why.
Not in here.
That line's going to be, like next year, it won't be there.
It won't be there,
Because the
okay.
last time we used that program was in FY16.
Well, you did not
being phased
have,
out.
you did not have a dollar in another line, so I just wanted to check. Okay, what did Spark stand for?
I couldn't tell you.
The spark has gone out of it, okay. The computer equipment. The line 57340 and following.
So I believe the computer equipment we need for next year will be going into a grant. Oh.
And okay.
Oh, new equipment, that's not computer equipment, but
No.
just regular equipment.
In what context and by whom is the computer equipment used?
So I'm not sure if you're talking about the computer equipment or the new equipment.
I'm talking about line 57340, 2 and 3.
Okay, yes. The computer equipment. Yes, the computer equipment that we require, we're looking to put into a grant.
There's no money allocated in the budget for it, so
Who?
It's $1.
$1.
Yeah,
There's no bill
I know.
line, but
Let me try it again. Who's going to use the stuff?
Oh, students with disabilities.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I did not know whether it was a faculty tracking system and evaluation and such. Thank you. Any other question?
yeah, on Bright Beginnings, new equipment, replacement furniture, how does the Bright Beginning, is that a contract? Or is that something that it's a contract through a third party, or is that something that we're in-house that we're handling?
It's ours.
Because I see you got these new lines for this stuff here in this budget, so it almost looks like it's never been addressed before.
I can't speak to the past, having not been here. I think there was an increase in speech therapy this year due to student need, and we do have students we're servicing that have complex needs, which is why I plan for that. But
Yeah, because you have a very specific number for one of these lines.
Yeah, for the chair.
Replacement furniture and fixture, it doesn't say exactly, yeah, chairs, yeah. So are those like foldable chairs or something? Or?
They're preschool size chairs. She right now has this match crew that's very old, and the children are falling out of the chairs because they're not the appropriate size.
Can we go down one more line?
Sure.
The sped dues and fees, which is a new line. NHA SEA through $530, but then it says $930 for the line. So there's this, there's something else that is going to detail in, because $530 is at $930.
That's New Hampshire Association of Special Education Administrators. There's a fee to be a member, and then there's an annual conference over the summer, 2 days, excuse me, a law conference.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to step back a little bit, back to the right beginning. So you just stated that one is a preschool program, and it's in-house, it's created through the school system. It's not a contract or mandate or anything like this. So all these additional costs for the right beginnings are self-created, correct? I mean, this is something they're creating. They're creating a program, or somebody is creating a program, and now these added costs are popping up. How many preschool children actually are involved with right beginnings?
We'll have a cap of 24, but I believe there's about 20 now. The reason why we have a program is that by law we're required to provide services for students with disabilities aged 3 through 21. And in some communities, when there are a lot of preschools, it makes sense to service the students in where they are. But in a community like Milton where there aren't very many.
It falls on the school department.
Yeah, well, that's what, you're getting at. It's, sometimes they have terms that there's a special education chair. There's also a preschool special education chair that encompasses the 3- and 4-year-olds too. So in answering the question, when you looked at the numbers of students now, you're finding out it goes even below 5.
You almost break this out and have an entirely separate function line for bright beginnings, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It would, if we didn't have that preschool, we would have to pay for those students to go into preschools.
As I remember, it never used to be in this budget. It was separate, and I don't remember when the change came in, because this, was it 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It just started?
So we can break out the actual costs for the program.
Yeah.
We created those new lines. They used to be embedded in the other lines like contract.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Could you eventually, within the next year or so, instead of having it listed under special ed, have its own function so we know what the actual total cost of the bright beginnings program is, correct? Because it sounds like this is going to grow.
It exists due to service students with disabilities, even though other students without disabilities attend. It exists for those students.
I can add a informational sheet that shows the breakdown.
That helps, thank you.
Yep.
To go back on that, I thought I heard that the definition of replacement furniture and fixtures was not the simple replacement of a Fisher-Price chair that has a seat that's 12 inches high. It could be a specialized adaptive chair that permits assisted mobility for the child. It could be that intensive. Yes.
For some students, yes.
Yes. Okay. Peg, did you have a question or comment you were going to make?
No, I was just, when Dennis was talking about Bright Beginnings and why all of a sudden we have it, and then I do believe Melissa answered it that it's a federal mandate that we provide
for special education.
For special education students, 3 to 5.
But she said that it's expanded to other students as well.
Well, that's something else, because now all of a sudden you cannot have more special ed students in a preschool than regular students.
And the taxpayers are paying for all 20 of those students to go to preschool.
You've heard of least restrictive environment. So we are required by law to place students in the least restrictive environment, which in most cases is with typical peers. So having a special education preschool, when we just plop all of the kids in there that have been identified as having a special need, we are not considering least restrictive environment. So rather than having a special ed preschool, we're going to have an early childhood center, open it up to other children as well. And the only time we'll have to pay for a student to leave the district is if their needs can't be met just like throughout the rest of the grades, if their needs cannot be met in that environment.
So is it safe to assume by adding non-special education, I'm sorry, I'm not,
It's okay.
the regular students, for lack of a better term, by adding them into the Bright Beginnings, that basically disperses the cost per student? Is that what's going to happen?
We're
So instead
current-
of having X amount of dollars per student here, you got more students, therefore you get less per cost per student? Is that what's happening?
So currently, it has not been proposed to charge community, we'll call them community children, to attend Bright Beginnings. And we are working with a consultant who has done this for many preschools around the state. And there is actually a downside to charging community children, because it inhibits us from getting those students in, and if we don't have the numbers, so if it's not at least 50-50, it's not an early childhood program, it's a special ed program. So in order to attract, I know it's complicated, but believe me, I have smart people helping me with this transition, and there is good purpose.
With all due respect, sounds like you get pigeonholed.
But the flip side is...
You feel we're being held hostage by
you are.
our requirement.
It's the government.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's true, yeah.
The flip side is paying for those students to go to a preschool and transporting them there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I might, it sounds like the Milton School District has taken the approach of we have a mandate, we have to, from grade, from age 3 to 21, we have to take care of kids that may be special ed.
Mm-hmm.
And so those that are 3 to 5, the approach that's been chosen is to open an early childhood center.
Correct.
And that's how, as opposed to simply paying to have these kids go to a something somewhere else, wherever that might be.
Correct.
And I'm correct in saying that the school district would have to pay if they had to go somewhere else, just like any other special ed case.
Correct.
So
And transport them.
then in the same, if I'm following you, in the same fashion that you have run the numbers for the cost of outplacement, it is one, compliance is the hammer, and it is financially advantageous to the district to pay for the less costly inclusion of community children rather than try to find an outsource and cover transportation and the rest. And that, yeah, so that's, compliance is still the...
That too is something, just like the partner program, we have to keep doing a cost analysis and assure ourselves that this is the most cost-effective thing. And that's one of the things that we come up to. We come toward the end of the year, we start costing things out in some of these areas. And if we find that it's advantageous to go in another direction, then we go the route that's cost-effective.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is there, say, grant money or some state money that can help cost, for the burden of the taxpayers for this type of program, or?
Where the special ed, that, the grant that has worked with that is IDEA. You might wanna.
The last couple of years have been about $150,000 in grant money, which I anticipate next year will pay for our school psychologist, our child find coordinator, and some behavior analyst services. So what is put into the grant may change, but it's the same amount of money that's helps to take the burden off us.
Thank you.
But that's the grant source. It's called IDEA.
Okay.
And Tom?
One last question. My understanding is that this early childhood, that's a new program that's being started, right?
We're slowly transitioning
Okay.
to that. Yeah.
Is there any way that progress of kids that go through that could be tracked and somehow compared to kids that haven't gone through that. That would be curious to see, because it may be that there's some additional benefit that's you know, instead of doing a simple cost analysis of saying, oh, it cost us $50 a kid to have this program, we can ship them out for $45. Well, if there can be another non-monetary benefit, that if we could say, yeah, kids that have gone through this, we see typically have 25% better scores. I don't know how you track it. You know, if there'd be some way to track it like that, because it sounds, I can't see an argument for not doing it. It sounds like it's only could only benefit the kids.
Yep.
So if there's some other data that could be drawn from kids that go through the program, that might be advantageous to, you know, 2 years from now when we say, yeah, it's costing us about the same amount, or it costs us a little more to do this than it would to ship the kids out. And that would be an arrow in the quiver to say this is why we should do it, because we're seeing kids, the behavior's better. And however you measure it, I don't know how you measure it. But.
So that's three things to respond to that. So the state requires students who are identified to be tracked. So it's called POMS, the preschool outcome measurement system. So I can see what skills they came in with and what skills they leave with. Two, if we were to place all of our students in preschools rather than have our own, preschools are not required to have certified teachers, and we do have a certified teacher who's trained in regular and special education. And three, this isn't just anecdotal, but kindergarten teachers have noticed the difference between students who have come in from the Bright Beginnings program rather than students who haven't, and they are more prepared for kindergarten.
Okay, then, you're dealing with the compliance as the hammer, possibilities for socialization, empathy, courtesy, blooming in place, the possible advantages to working parents, the possible statistical analysis similar to the Head Start program when you have longitudinal comparison. We'll answer some of Tom's question. Anything else on that? I am just about at the bottom of the total for 1,200 special ed. Any other question, comment, observation? Either side of the table? Okay. Medicaid fees. Melissa, would that be you or Nate or both of you on how Medicaid fees fit into the picture?
I'm as a new director. I'm not sure how that's changed over the years. It looks like it's gone up a little bit, but I guess it's the fee for using MSB.
No. In that case, the question was addressed to me.
She pretty much said it. It's MSB who does our billings. Charges us 9.75%, I believe it is, to do that. So every time we get a Medicaid reimbursement, they take 9.75% of it.
And they are a headhunter, basically. Without them, we might be looking at 15 to 20% losses. On that artificial percentage, we're 10% ahead by paying them 9. Okay? Vocational programs. And tuition to the Regional Tech Center, Adult Learning Center, school to work supplies, and then the mathematical computation of FICA, retirement, and the rest. Question on vocational programs. Would anyone on the committee like a question?
On 1351-120-3, school to work coordinator. It looks to be, is that one person?
Yes.
And it's a $3,400 pay increase?
Yes. He changed tracks.
I'm sorry?
He changed the track. So he went, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was on like an MA and he went to an MA plus 15 or on the salary schedule.
Oh,
I'm all set on that page.
okay. Any other question? Was that clear, Andy, Sean? That the salary schedule is tied to academic credentials, and if the person went from one set of parameters to a second set, that was the $3,000 jump. Any comment from the board as to which vocational programs seem to be holding the most promise, have the most people participating in them? Are tuitions to other centers where you would like them to be? Are there changes that you would make in programs if you could offer them internally?
I don't know the exact numbers in each program. I know we have students in ROTC, we have them in cosmetology, we have them in the building trades and the automotive, but I don't know the exact numbers in each one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that a situation where you are budgeting for one slot, and if two people show up, that could have a significant effect on that budget, or is
We're looking at how many students in the past we've had and what we anticipate moving forward, because it stays fairly stable.
Okay, thank you. Any other question, comment on vocational programs? Instructional programs. We have summer school, co-curricular, and umps, refs, umpires and referees, elementary co-curricular, middle co-curricular. That I am down to the middle of page 7, where it includes co-curricular, athletic stipends, and student support center salary.
Mr. Chairman.
Stan.
On page 7, 51-130-1, elementary co-curricular salaries. Now, there is a note here. It says CBA driven with additional after-school sessions increased due to increased participation. Can we get a little more clarity on that $7,800? What drove that?
Yeah. Christina can jump in. We've had a very effective after-school program for MES students. And what it involves is an extra rotation of students participating. There was a rotation of 4, now there's a rotation of 5. A year ago, Melissa Coffey, who's in charge of it, came to the school board and indicated that it was an overt participation and had some great statistics on the number of students that were involved in it. The school board took a good look at it, because I said at the beginning, when I talked about it's an overall decrease, but at the same time, we're bare bones, but we're not taking away from students.
So that's going to be, there's 5 people involved, 5 teachers?
No,
when you say
there's 4.
5?
John, you can
We
speak
usually
on that.
have 6 teachers and 2 to 3 paraprofessionals at a time each session, and they're 6-week sessions. Last year we ran it 5 sessions instead of 4 sessions, and I think maybe the year before there was some increase in that too. How we came up with this number is it's the actual spending that we spent last year and will be spending this year. So because of some of the other stipends that weren't being used, we never went over the 1,400 line, even though we spent more in that line. So what we did was basically gave you the real numbers.
Clear.
We didn't go over the line.
Transparency. But it is.
Yeah, what we did was we made it more transparent, because it was like an amendment to a constitution. We actually made the change. You know, they had done all the right things. They came before the school board. It became a legitimatized thing, but we wanted to make a transparent stand so it can be actually seen right in here. And, you know, because you have as much as we're first and foremostly we're looking at the taxpayer. At the same time, we don't want to give the ideas that we're not providing for the students too.
So that $20,225 represents approximately 6 to 8 people.
No, that's not only.
On page 37, there's a breakdown.
Thank you, Nate.
You were gonna ask.
So it has a list of the after school, and then it shows all these stipends for MES.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because as we framed this, Ms. Josefina, Nate and I, we discussed this quite a few times. And then we did the breakout sheet, so you would have it. So we gave you the concept, we gave you the background, and now you get the specifics.
Thank you.
Yes, Stan.
Last year when we looked at, we were at a budget crunch. We had extremely high participation. The kids trying to get into these programs, and they were being turned away. So we decided, even though we had a tight budget, we went into the 5th term. And right now, some kids are being turned away on this program after school in order to get into these programs. And we decided to continue. As long as we had high participation, we'd support this, and we are supporting it.
I just don't want that number, the 20,000, some people thinking that represents 4 or 5 people, get that, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It's
no.
just a portion of it, yeah.
Yeah, right, so I want it very clear that that represents multiple of people.
Teachers, parents,
Yeah.
I don't want to get anything wrong, Stan.
Oh, good. Don't you? I know where you live.
Oh, you I don't have a burning bag on my porch.
Okay.
Don't step on it.
My acronym ear is overloaded. Please define a CBA. Anybody?
Teachers contract.
Collective bargaining agreement.
Oh, Lord,
Thanks,
of
Dave.
course.
You're welcome.
Oh, Lord, I'm sorry.
He doesn't listen to sports radio, does he?
What?
He doesn't listen to sports radio.
But,
That's what they talk about all the time, the CBA.
Oh, okay.
what's a radio?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that one went right past me. Okay. Then we are down. If there's something on page 7, as Stan had a question that you would like more explanation or a question about, or if the board itself would like to provide more backup, please. If not,
I do have one, Mr. Chairman.
Bob Carrier.
This one near the bottom where it says notes, move to line 100, 1400 to 56,110.3. That's that high summer school.
Yep.
So the $1,000 been taken out in.
5610.
Find where that 5610
Be the next page.
is. Is there any specific reason for that, or?
I'm just trying to clean it up. Because, I mean, technically, the 532 is contracted services. And for the longest time, we've had supplies in that line for some reason. So I'm just trying to clean it up.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good.
Okay. Then, turning page 7 once, twice, page 8. Travel supplies, co-curricular, summer school supplies, high school summer school supplies, new equipment, very nice new wall pads. I like that. I have run into concrete.
On that subject of the wall pads, the 2 lines, the wall pad for the gym and right below it, the padded soccer table. I'm sure scores table, I saw. Yeah. There's no, an account, like a warrant article account that money can be taken out of? The school doesn't have something that the taxpayers put money into every year?
Not.
I can think of now.
Like similar to a CIP type thing?
Well, CIP is for the whole town, but
Yeah.
no.
That's what it was.
Similar to like they have it for the maintenance of the building, they have it for books, they have one for books. I didn't know if there was one still someplace for.
Not for equipment, no.
Yeah.
I think these were put in a couple of years, was it last year, the year before, and we cut them out. Last year, these were, and we said no. So,
But,
that
hey,
time we got 'em.
Yep. going along with the wall pads in the gym, if you look at the line just above that, 56501, new software for concussion testing, baseline, where are you? So that in case you do get hit in the head, they can test you again. And I know I have a friend whose son was tested. Originally he plays hockey and got another concussion, and it's very important, I think, today now that they're finding all of the issues and complications and problems with kids getting concussions, that they do need a baseline. So I was very pleased that we added that line.
Would you, since you started, would you define what you mean by baseline?
Where's your head? I mean, they take a picture of your brain, and can you explain more, Jan?
So at the beginning of the season, it's an online program where they ask questions, and based on how long it takes them to answer and how they answer, it gives them, here's where their cognitive level is. Then if they have a concussion, then they have to take it again, and it will let you know whether they've recovered cognitively yet or not, or whether we still need to rest them.
Okay. Because I knew that was it. They also, my friend's son, brain scans, and they can really tell by looking at the inside of the brain.
Yep.
So.
And this has no impact on football, has no impact on soccer, where concussions without helmets for hitting the ball are on the rise.
It can be any sport. So basically, we will have every athlete take this at the beginning of the season in every sport.
Across the sport. Okay.
Yep.
So you only have they have one opportunity to baseline. You don't have multiple attempts if it's some sort of cognitive thing. It seems like depending if you're tired, awake, didn't have enough sleep the night before, those types of things could vary, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, we would usually do it at the beginning of the season, and they do it right after school.
Okay.
So if they tell us, boy, I was really off, we can have them do it again.
Do you know if it's if the cost is based per test, or if it's you buy the software and you have an unlimited amount of tests?
It should be unlimited for the school, once we let them know how many students we have in the school.
Okay. Then, any that answer your question, Sean?
Indeed it does.
Okay. Any other question on 1400? Tom? Nope. Okay. That brings us down to the guidance, which runs from half of page 8, half of page 9, elementary, middle, and high school, health, supports, dental, life insurance, the FICA, the mathematically computed stuff, retirement, and questions, as for example, printing and binding, and guidance software and books. Any questions from the committee?
Yes, on guidance 51120-2. If you read the notes, there's a line 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down that was brought back up and absorbed into that line. But there's still a difference of $5,400. Is that 51120-2 middle guidance salary? Is that one individual, two people?
Two people.
Two people? So that $5,400 would be a raise for how many people is what I'm trying to get at.
I'm looking it up real quick.
Okay, no problem. If it's one person, that's quite the raise.
It is one person.
I think it's because our middle school counselor moved to the high school.
Yeah, that's
And we're
from
hiring
a
you.
switch over. So the middle school, like she just said, the middle school counselor went to the high school and we had turnover as well.
Okay, so how does that constitute a $5,400 raise?
She was making more than the people that she took over for. slightly. And then you have to take into consideration the CBA. She got that.
Okay, so for non-contractual commitments in this budget, is there a raise in here?
Non-contractual, yes.
And what is that?
For administration, it's 2%. For support staff, it's a step.
Which would represent what?
On pages.
You mean
average 50 cents per hour. But this goes back to all the moving we did during the school year. So if you refer to page 28, gives you a better idea of all the moving that happened.
And also, if you look at the salaries, the two lines that he moved add up to about $74,000, but their increase is only $68,069. So it's still a net decrease. Because
okay, but that particular line increased by X, and I just wanted an explanation for it, that's all.
Right, so it's the money that was being paid to the middle school counselor is now being paid to the high school counselor, and the middle school counselor who replaced her is making less than she was making. So that's why overall there's a net loss in the two lines, but there was a gain in the high school line because when we moved that position, she's making more than the person she replaced. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm done.
Then Stan's question is answered. We're looking. I'm at the top of page 9. Nothing on disability insurance, the retirement, the FICA. Printing and binding. Could you just speak briefly to what printing and binding prints and binds?
Yep, that's making the course of studies for students, mostly.
Oh, this would be internally developed texts and associated.
Right, so
Yep.
it's before they do their scheduling every year, we give them the course of studies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This would be for students.
Correct.
Okay, so a student would have a guidebook saying that from September to January I'm doing this much, from January to March this, and from March to graduation, or
It's
whatever
more
the dates are.
It's
This is
more
what I'll
the
be doing.
four-year plan, but yes, it gives them all of the courses that we offer so that they can look and choose which ones they want to take next year and then for the forthcoming years after that as
Okay,
well.
guidebook. Thank you. Actual guidance. Then I am down to the total for 2120 for guidance. Any other question on that, or do we move to the line 2130, the nurses office, which has elementary, middle, and high, with health insurance and the dental on page 9. Then Stan.
Yeah, please. I'm back again to salary. Nurses, that's a non-contractual, correct?
It is contractual.
That is contractual.
Yes, it is.
Because that's more than, that elementary nurse.
Yep, that's a step.
Yeah, that's about 6.5% increase. It's one person, right?
It's a step plus the CBA, which was $500 on those steps.
But it still represents X, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Question from my left, Sean, Andy, Peg, Bob. Anything catch your eye?
Nope.
Okay. Then that seems to be fairly straightforward. I'm glad to see we're getting the nurse repaired this year. Oh, all right. And equipment, supplies, that failing any other question, that takes us through 2130 and on to interesting topic, improvement of instruction. Earl, do you want to speak to that, or do the principals wish to speak to for their own schools?
Actually, here it's pretty self-explanatory because this is the prophetic, and part of it is the CBA.
Mm-hmm.
Every person on staff is allotted a certain amount of money. It's a function of the number of staff that we have.
That's on page 10, you're talking about improvement of instruction? Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's professional development.
Oh, professional development, okay.
And as Earl said, there is a stipulation in the contract that people are allotted so much for a courseware in a year.
Okay, but on, where it says notes, anticipated increase in participation, where there's a $1,000 increase in line 2210, 53210-3, that seems to be like a very gray area, that, you know, anticipated. How much did we spend this year on that line? I mean, we don't have a revenue report in front of me, so I can't go and look.
I didn't bring that form with me. Part of the increase is because the next gen science standards are out and the statewide assessment is now going to be based on those, and we are not using those right now. So our teachers need to go to conferences to learn about those and how to implement them. So this spring we'll be tested on it and we're not teaching it. So we'll see how those science scores do.
Okay. Any other question on 2210 improvement of instruction?
May I,
Nate.
to answer your question, we have $172.14 remaining in that.
And we had allocated $2,000, and you didn't, basically you spent what we had.
Yep.
All right? So you think you're gonna go another 50% more?
Yep.
I mean, we're only talking $1,000, but $1,000 is $1,000.
A question, in terms of the district's obligation to make sure that its potential health insurance costs are in the budget, does anticipated increase in participation have that same kind of reference? That you have to make sure you have an amount that people may take advantage of?
Yeah, this doesn't even represent how much. I mean, if every single employee maximized their amounts, it would be a lot more than this. So we try to just anticipate what we expect based on history, and surveying the employees as well, asking them if they plan on doing more PD.
All right. Does that answer more, Stan? Any other question? If not, Bob? Okay. 2220, the library. Again, the statistical entries for health, dental, life, disability, FICA, and retirement are mathematically computed. Then you have professional development, repairs and supplies, materials, and software.
I think that basically there's a recurrent theme. You look at the first line, you look at the salary, it's down 19,000. That is because we replaced a higher staff person with a lower step person, and that's because we used a current employee, and Mr. Safine to work with her, and therefore she's in that position now. So it worked out to be a net cost-effective gain of 19,000. So therefore, some of those, so it's reflected in the fact that that line is less. And going back, I know we answered the question that Stan had regarding the guidance counselors and guidance, but that also showed a net loss of a half-time person. Because the person that was under the grant and the student assistance counselor, they became the middle school counselor. So instead of the budget bearing 2.5 staff, it only bears 2 staff. So from the very outset, every area, most every area, has shown a decrease in staffing or a breakage in staffing that has allowed us to provide more for students.
Any other question on library? To my left, to my right? My own question. Culture grams, does anyone have the definition for that and for more alphabet soup, EBSCO?
EBSCO takes books and put them on
Online.
online, and also on, you can listen to them. My sister works for them.
Oh, okay.
Ipswich.
And culture grams? Okay. Any other comment on the library for software, books, computer equipment, total for 22-20 library? Done. School board. The school board salaries, the school board moderator, treasurer, and the school board.
School board didn't get a raise this year.
That,
Well, based on merit.
Very good job.
Yeah.
I suppose you guys want to give us one. Wait a minute. I make a motion, we give them all a raise.
right, yes.
Yeah, I'll give them, I'll double what they said they were gonna get. So
Right.
0 times 0 is still 0.
I'm going for 3 times. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Unfortunately, aspirin is a cheap generic drug. But,
Yeah.
And, okay, the, more to the point, the moderator, which comes in for, and the clerk, the elected officers, the professional development, legal service, auditor, advertising. This would be the cost of advertising for open positions within the district, school board district reports, I presume, such as this that we are looking at right now.
No.
Okay, school board district reports would be,
Those are those books you get every year and pass out?
During voting.
oh,
Deliberative
that one,
session.
yes,
And with the
okay,
student artwork in the front.
yes,
So what
yes.
we decided, we found that we've been ordering too much. So I think we made a cut.
We made a cut last year too.
We're making another cut this
Yeah.
year. We got too many on hand.
Mhm.
We're trying to save money wherever we can.
Thank you.
Yes,
Any particular question, observation on the school board, which is the 2310 school board? No question on that. That finishes discussion of 2310 for the moment. On to 2320, the SAU expenses.
I have a question.
Stan.
You know it's gonna be salary. 51,120-0, financial manager's salary. $4,870 increase. Is that a contractual obligation, or is that negotiated with the school board, or what is that?
As you go through here, you can see mine was based on merit too, so I didn't get a raise.
Okay, but you're not the financial manager, though.
No, I just.
Don't try to
give you
deflect,
a hard
Earl.
time.
Don't try to deflect, all right?
Okay,
Okay?
at the end of the year, as we divide it up, the board, we took a look at what that pay was, and it was moved to be, to compete with what that pay should be. So that was a competitive, or nearing a competitive pay for the spot that it was in.
So the next line
Same
down,
with the, yeah, same as the next one.
so how many people involved in the next line down?
2.
So that $6,400 is split between 2 people.
Any other, that takes us to the bottom of page 12.
Can I just interject on that financial manager? Originally, we had that contracted out, we were paying $90,000 originally, for that position.
That's right.
This is what we got, so we saved money there. In reality, this position is really important to the function of these numbers that you're getting in this book.
I'm not disputing the validity of the position.
Yeah.
What I'm only asking is clarity of what it represents.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because people are going to ask me.
I know. I think we've got a good team at the SAU 64 right now.
Nate dresses very well. Not as nice as Mr. Brown's.
I think that the basic thing that we're trying to do is, as you save and you restructure and you do the various things you're saying, then you look at it, and when the smoke goes out, clears out, then you kind of you look at where you can help folks out. Like this year with the drivers, and we had people making $8.62 as far as the assistance went. So we try to enhance them. So it's a kind of redistribution of what is saved, and then the board makes a determination based on that. So if you look at the final cost of the SAU, it's down.
Right, but to talk on the other side of that coin, if I can find my notes, when we were figuring how many people there were, children rather, not people, in the school, it came out, if I'm not mistaken, I showed you, it was like 18,000 and some change per pupil.
19.
Okay.
Almost $19,000.
There's
19,000,
an
yes.
answer to that Nate will help explain, and you bring up a valid point. I've been doing this for many years. And the easiest thing is to say, okay, if you got if the funds are 10 mil, 500 kids, I'm just rounding it off. It's 20,000 a kid, a student, but you have to take out tuition and transportation from that. Right, Nate?
Yeah.
Well, not really, because the taxpayer is going to say, this is what it's costing me per child in this school.
I know that's how I look at it, Stan.
That's how you look at it, right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what you think you're going to take out. You can't take it out. If the taxpayer's paying it, it's costing them that.
I hear what you're saying.
And I think a $10 million budget for a town this size is ridiculous, personally, but I've been saying that for years.
Usually, if you attend the budget committee, what I try to do is, from the variety of information I have picked up, provide definition on some of the topics that come across when I have it, do some of the living memory of the tribe, and make sure I move from left to right to get opinions and questions from members. I'm going to step out of that for a moment because I met Nate when he had just as much hair as he has now, and came on board. I was here when we had a business administrator who, to the best of my knowledge and belief, actually asked what ADP was. If you review the materials here, if you ask Nate any question of background information, it's either on file in his backup materials. He refers automatically to the follow-up page in this document, and more than likely already has the information on file, collated, memorized, and up to speed. It is an extraordinary agreement, and I think that one of the things that has not been brought up in this conversation is the inescapable structural costs of operating a school district in the state of New Hampshire, where the residential property tax is the overriding driver for the budgets. There is no way to escape the administrative criteria for who shall run the district, who shall be in charge of a given program, and what the credentials of those people will be, and how you will fund and document grants that you receive from the state and local government. Thank you, Nate.
To reiterate what Stan said, this is not any sort of
Criticism.
stating that's, I mean, to be honest, if I had gotten here on time, I would have working with Nathan to get this data in Excel, helped our case to have the town provide us with the same data in the same format. And I totally appreciate it, because I asked you when you sent out the packet, I responded, hey, can we get the Excel? By the time I was home from work, it was there. Like, you do a great job.
There's no
It's nothing, we're not saying
There's no
anything about
criticism.
what anyone does
But
and what the work they do.
the method of the numbers, how they were, the formulation of them is what I want answers to. You know, how it came about. I'm not saying you're not worth it.
I
I'm not,
understand.
okay?
I understand.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just wanting to have clarity in how that number came about.
And that's how I took it.
Good.
If I could speak just for a second on a side note, what Stan's saying tonight is what a lot of people say when the new appraisals come out on homes and all these kinds of things, and you know, as I call it, the Facebook blows up and everybody loses their mind. But case in point, the same thing I said last year. Who's here today? Only the people that are here for the purpose of the kids, for writing the budget and making sure that we get what we need to make sure the kids get a good education, and nobody else. So I don't even have Facebook, because I'd light myself on fire if I had it, because I'm so sick of what people say the next day, how bad we are and how everything's corrupt, and nobody's here to represent that time. Stan is saying what some people are thinking, but hey, we need you here, because if we don't know what you're thinking and what you believe, or you don't know what you have questions, same thing I said last year.
I'm not the only one on this board that gets phone calls.
Yeah, well stated. You're absolutely 100% correct.
And I really know the role that you have. I've been doing this kind of thing for 35 years in this seat. And not this exact seat, but, you know, in the same things that you're bringing up to the people that are really doing their work on it are the case. But I think the bottom line is that budget to budget, it's down. It's well under default. It is very hard when, as you said, Dennis, and some of you said, the retirement costs, the health costs, and all these fixed amounts are going up. When we can be down, I think it says a lot for what we can have control of.
And same thing, to speak on Stan's behalf, if you answer Stan's questions, you have a better knowledge of what the money is doing. Doug, you were about to say.
The only thing I want the board to realize, we negotiated with Earl, and Earl decided not to take a pay raise this year.
He said that, he's done on merit, he didn't get none.
It was deserved.
He's got his Lindt chocolate.
Yeah, there you go.
I heard he had his checkbook out, he wanted to give you back some.
And also in that process for Earl, he's also taken on wearing many other hats under the role of superintendent, doing above and beyond, albeit I've only been on this board for 4 years, so I don't have the experience like Doug and them have, but incredible the turnover that we've seen just in the time that Earl has been here, and the things that have changed. And I mean, we no longer have custodians making $8 an hour. They're actually making money to kind of live, but the budget's less than last year. I mean, that takes a lot of work, and just analyzing every penny that we have coming in and out of the district. I mean, by the team. And say, you know, I'm all set, I'm no more, you know, I'll take what I get and I'll just keep doing more work. It's an incredible thing. So, I mean, in the big picture of things, I mean, there's a few people that are pulling the giant weight for the rest of the town. It's really pretty good to see.
You know, and I will tell you, when it comes time and things are going well, I you know, I'll offer the help to you folks, and I don't really care what the pay would be, because I'm very committed.
Okay, what line was that now?
Make
a motion to cut that one.
No, but thank you.
And and the lyrics for "Kumbaya" will be found on what page?
That's the last page.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Facebook. I mean, I am a member of the Facebook, so I get all the stuff on the Facebook that I was referring to. And when you mentioned, you know, $20,000 per student.
19.
All right. Oh, that's excellent. 19. Phew, let's bring that one down.
20.
Well, I was trying to
Okay.
round it off.
I mean, I have to be honest. I have bitten my tongue on the Facebook many times, reading what they have to say. But I think people need to understand that the average tuition out is $14,000 per student, plus the transportation cost to get them there. We are spending $206,000 to send students, special ed students, placement. We still are responsible for those students, no matter what, because they are from our district.
That's a total different subject, though.
No, I know, but I guess I just want to get it out there that, yes, people are saying, send the kids out, send the kids out. We don't need a school here, we don't need a school here. And I don't think people understand everything that goes into sending the students out.
Well, those are the same people that said that didn't show up the last time. We did it 2 years ago, and we did analysis and had Summersworth come in and had this person come in. Those are the ones that weren't there at that meeting.
And the ones who were there at that meeting were the ones who wanted their students to stay in Milton and keep the school open. So it's just a back and forth. And I'm sorry, I just had to say that because it really does bother me that people don't look at the whole picture.
May the chair exercise his iron control and bring us back to 2014.
Yes, you may.
Tom.
No, I'm not talking about Facebook or the
Tom's ringing us back.
sending them out. I'm going to back up to 2320 SAU expense. Where are we accounting for the maintenance on the Damon house? Is it, because that's where the SAU's housed now, right? Mm-hmm. Where is it captured somewhere else? Because I just went through and I didn't see it. The expenses for the maintenance of the
custodian.
Minor repairs is in the new budget line. It's covered under that. It stayed where it's always been.
Okay, so you didn't break it out to show we've had more traffic in the building, so it's costing us more to keep it up or anything like that, correct?
Okay. Then, any other question before we leave?
Yeah, I do.
2320. Stan.
Does anyone have the number of what it cost us when we were joint with Wakefield, what it cost us to basically, like, we rented from Gazelle and so forth? Because in my mind, now that we're in a town-owned building, there's no mortgage or rent due, correct?
Correct.
So that should be, it's nice to see that this is $672 less than last year, but we also gotta take that money that last year was, that we're not spending no more, to make that part of the equation. You follow what I'm saying?
But what he took was the whole amount of what it cost us. Right?
Yeah, we paid roughly, together, we paid about $35,000 a year.
Okay, and we paid 40% of that.
Yeah.
So 35,000.
43.
43?
43.
Exactly. Now you gotta make the math.
33.7.
Yes.
And,
so that's $80,000 round numbers. No, it can't be. You said 35,000.
Yep.
0.43.
Times 0.43. Okay, 15,000 round numbers. I hit the wrong number. So $15,000. So
basically, we should put that 15,000 to
Yeah.
say, foot, apples for apples.
Yep, so if you look at like FY 17, that's a pretty good, that's how much we spent in FY 17 for that
Right.
particular year, so $407,000.
So we're not really less than last year, the $672. We're really $13,000 more.
Would you be kind enough to specify what line you were?
Well, there is no line because it doesn't exist no more.
Okay.
Well, in FY 17, third and fourth lines down on page 13, it's the 23-25-3110-1 and -2.
Yeah.
SAU expense. That's how much we were paying for both for the breakout.
But that also included administration.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Right, I'm not including administration because we have administration here already. You know, all you people at this table, that's in that number.
Yes.
Right, so we gotta take that out. I'm just talking about just the pure money you gave for rent. You know what I'm saying? Because now we're not paying rent.
Right, it's down 15,000.
Right, so we really gotta say that this budget now is $14,000 over last year, not
Difference of
$672 below. In reality, on paper, this is correct, but
That 15,000 came out of this year's budget though, so you
But
won't
it
see a
wasn't
difference
this
from
year.
this
But what
year.
I'm saying, for apples, what we spent last year, and now we don't have that liability no more of that mortgage, or that rent, I should say.
That was 2 years ago.
Right,
This
so
current
that's,
year,
you can
which
see
is
that in
based on
this
the
year's
FY
budget.
18.
We just moved out in June, right?
Yeah, so the FY 18 budget is this year's. So if you want to compare apples to apples, it would be FY 17 to FY 18.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Well, it's the
No,
$15,000 right
Still,
there.
so 15,000, so,
That 15 is not in this year's budget.
Right,
It's
it's-
also not in next year's budget.
right,
But you're not gonna
But
see
what
it
I'm
because it's
saying
not in
here
this
is-
year's budget.
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying.
It already was out.
It's already gone.
It was the year,
The prior year was taken out.
it was 407, and it went down to 395. So in this year's budget, it had already
Right.
been taken out from the year before.
Well, that's only 10,000 though.
I mean, it's.
Just
yeah,
saying though.
Yeah.
It's only a $10,000 difference.
Anyway, that was just something I was trying to bring to everybody's attention.
407 to 395 is 12.
Yeah, that's what I just said too.
11,000
Here and here.
We are, the discussion is still on the SAU budget. One of the things that is not in here is, I will use the phrase sunk costs, but I don't remember what that means. Money that is, that was spent forward to bring the Damon House to its new specifications to be used as the office. The rental goes away, but you are not going to operate, repair, and maintain the Damon House for nothing. Those costs go forward. So what Stan is getting at is how much of that 15,000 is now in the operating cost of the Damon House, how much got buried in the paperclip account, and you should be giving it back. Is that where you're going, Stan?
It's
We've beat
doesn't
this
matter.
dead horse long enough.
Yeah.
It's unless there is a question that could be answered in detail, when you get down to the SAU expense, the lines show what the proposed is, what the present is, what the actual was. It goes down. Office of the principal, elementary, middle, high school, secretaries, support, dental, and the rest. I have not turned the page to 14.
I
I'm
have
still on
questions.
page 13. Stan.
It's just to show I'm an equal opportunity abuser. All right. 51-110-2, middle principal salary, that's up $7,550. That's one individual, correct?
That's me.
Okay.
Turnover.
And then the next line is high principal salary, that's up $11,000. That's one individual, correct?
It's
That's still
the same individual. They're split up in two different.
Oh, so you gotta combine that.
Yeah.
So that one individual's got almost $19,000 increase from last year.
In salary
Is it-
alone, yes. Not benefits even out a little bit better, but we had turnover.
Okay, if you go down to 51140-1, elementary principal secretary salary, that's one individual?
It's
Two.
Yeah,
Elementary principal secretary salary.
elementary principal secretary is one.
All right, so that's one individual for $3,200, office assistant. 3153.70 raise. Then the next one, middle principal secretary salary, is that one individual?
No, that's 1.5.
One half, so that's $7,200.
Yeah, that's 1.5.
So where's the other half? And the next line down, that's a little.
No, it's a part-time
All right.
position.
Then the next line down, elementary principal, no, excuse me, did I get it right?
Office assistant?
High school principal salary, $11,331.50 increase. Is that one individual?
We added a half-time position, so it's an additional half person.
The 7,000, the 11,000, the last two you mentioned, is for 1.5, but a half position was added into it. So for this current year, we had only one position. Now we're adding it 1.5.
Okay. The office assistant below it, 2,200, that's one person, or?
Yes.
I'm done, Larry.
Any other questions on page 13 on the Office of Principal? Okay, we're now on page 14 and 15. Beginning with, we have the dental, disability, FICA, retirement, professional development. Do you wish to speak to that? And the copiers are always a fair game for discussion. Any question or comment from this side? Anything that the board wishes or superintendent wishes to speak to for any of those items on professional development or the copier and the postage and printing supplies?
I'd like to add that the principal for the middle and the middle and high school, there are many times that she's still here at 8 o'clock at night going above and beyond for her position, just so you do know she has been amazing. Again, we're always telling her to go home because she's there working all the time.
And I think that when you look at a position, you look at the total compensation. The total compensation bears in mind health insurance and things like that. So when you look at the total monies, did you put a chart in there?
No.
But,
well, for
yeah.
hers, yes, but not compared to what.
Yeah, but when you look at the overall thing, when you add in the health and the pay, it breaks not as extreme as it looks in there.
And without being specific, you are always looking for an individual who is, what's the word you use, vita, the academic credentials plus the particular experiences and fit with what the superintendent sees as a possible defect area that needs to be corrected. And if a person has superior credentials, ... Okay.
Exclamation point. More of an exclamation point than a ...
But, you know, to expand on what you just said, Earl, though, on the other side of that coin, the person that works out in the corporate world doesn't get, like the elementary principal retirement, $25,000 put in their retirement in a year's time. I hold a management position, and I wish I got that in my retirement. There's nowhere near that.
Correct.
So we got to, you know, look at everything.
But when you do compare other towns of similar sizes, she's not overpaid.
I'm not saying if
I'm
anyone's
just saying,
overpaid.
I'm not going to ask you. I'm just saying, if you look at other salaries, we are in budget we're not at the high end?
The big problem everyone's gonna have in Milton this year is the new taxes. Everyone's flipping out over.
Absolutely.
I have had people ask me to ask certain questions, and they want answers. And I want to try to address as many as I can on camera, so not only they hear it, but other people hear it.
And that's why I'm putting out, we aren't overpaying. If you look at across the board at what other towns are paying their superintendents as well. I mean, their principals as well.
Right. But like I said, you go back to the blue-collar worker that's paying their tax bill,
Yes,
and they see that you're putting $25,000 in the print, almost $26,000 in his retirement. That's a big hit. You know, I'd love to have that every year. You know, my company I work for makes millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. And, you know, I don't get that, so.
Okay. Then, is there, Bob Carrier, did you have a question or something caught your eye? No. Then, from the left, Sean, Andy, Peg, from your knowledge already of the budget, any comment you wanted to add? Any, Aaron?
No, no.
Tom?
The only thing I'm gonna add is, you know, I agree with Stan, you know, we have to look at total compensation. You know, when I get my end of year thing, my company doesn't just send me, this is what your salary was. Give you your salary, how much money they put towards your insurance, how much money they put to, I don't have a pension, so you know, we can talk about that. But, you know, they give you your total compensation. That's what the number we need to really look at. Of course, looking at salary affects all those other numbers underneath that. So I think it's a fair question. I think it's a fair point. We probably have the same person giving us information to ask, because you hit all my points so far.
No, I don't know what you're talking about, no.
Okay.
No. You know, just for another FYI, you know, and every year we fight this battle about contribution from health insurance. My boss thought he was a big player this year, and he went up 5% to 65%. He was at 60%, because some major people, including myself, threatened to leave. You know, that's the corporate world. They're not paying 80%, 90% like they used to no more.
Okay, but.
I'm just making it, you know, it all enters, because that's who's paying the tax bills. You know, people that, you know.
And I'm just pointing out that we're not overpaying our people when you look at the general facility, what we should be paying.
Okay, and.
So I missed part of that, so basically you're saying you're trying to be competitive.
I said that we are competitive, we are not on the high end of the scale.
Right.
We're not paying, you know, what could be being paid for somebody. We have a wonderful principal who puts in 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and if you look at salaries, they're in the middle.
Well, I'll tell you what, my impression is, for the amount of education time and learning he has to go through, that's a pretty paltry amount. But
I think it goes about what the whole town is going through too, you know. We're trying to keep people that we hire.
right,
You know, I don't care what the pay is, when you get constant turnover, there's no continuation of the practices that you know, we expect to try to put, you know, or enact into the school system and all that. When you got turnover every 2 years, how do you keep the plan working, and how do you keep the program moving forward when the first year somebody comes in is relearning the exact same thing over and over and over again? So by keeping, same with the police department, all these people that are trying to keep people here, there's a reason for that. I was a cop in Milton, and when I was there, it was a revolving door. Hey, let's go to the academy, now let's go get a good job, now that Milton paid for my academy time. Same thing. We're trying to keep people here, keep it continued, and that's the way to do it. I mean, it's the American way. You don't make enough money, you go somewhere else. You know, and we lose a lot of good talent for something as simple as that. I understand we're not Boston, but still, let's get it, you know, equivalent across the board with other towns.
So, then, thank you. Tom, you had one more question.
I'm going to get off the salaries for a minute and go to the equipment. Are we spending, it looks like to me, $23,000 for 5 copiers total? Am I reading these numbers right? Seems like an awful lot of money to be spending for 5 copiers for lease maintenance and whatnot. This aligns from 544 20-1 down to something like 54-520-3.
You're on page 14, right?
Page 14, yeah, the bottom of all the principal stuff.
Yeah, so the elementary has the 4, as you can see, and the middle and high school has 1. Those are what's being leased. That doesn't include what we own.
Okay.
And then if you look at the maintenance, that's the upkeep, that's all the ink, that's all the copies, all that stuff included.
So it's not, yeah, I asked that same question. It's not just repairing, it's the toner cartridges, it's all the things that keep the copy.
The printers as well.
But would it be possible to cut that in half and get one really fast one for the elementary school? Or this comes back to my thing about contracted services when the lease is up. Rather than blindly renewing it, perhaps look into, hey, we've got this need.
We absolutely do.
And, you
every year we do. Unfortunately, copiers are not cheap.
Yeah, out of the buy, get one big one that prints, 18 copies a second or something. I don't know. I don't know what the school's needs are, but that just seems, again, I don't know what copiers cost either. That seems like an awful lot of
middle of the road copier is about 10 grand.
That,
ink, I couldn't even guess.
Okay,
It's like 4 cents a copy.
a question raised by Tom as for the what seems to be a high cost of copiers. Can the principals speak to the multiple purposes that copiers are used for, and do you have any rough ballpark figure for the number of copies used by staff over a year, and as I think I remember, how the photocopier is being used to self-generate textbooks, assignments, etc.
Well, one of the areas you just said, John, Safina could speak to in terms of the curriculum and math. He's looking at through the grant ordering new books for math. Right now there's quite a
We don't
bit
have
of
any textbooks
copying.
in math. So we have some different little programs here and there, and neither do we have a formal reading program. We do have Reading Street series that we got donated to us that we're going to try to implement, but the curriculum that is in place for language arts are units that were developed, not textbook units. So a lot of what the teachers use for students are from making copies. So that's why we're looking at textbooks, and so you probably will see that line go down once we use the grant money to buy like math textbooks.
I'm sorry. You're saying that you have no math textbooks by lack of foresight, or because you are using a preferential in-house designed math teaching program?
That's for language arts. We have the in-house design language arts program.
Okay.
That has shown some effectiveness. The math was everyday math, which people are kind of getting away from now. We still have that program in the building, and we use it as a resource. So we're looking to go toward another program, a newer program that incorporates Common Core. So once those are in, we won't have to run off workbook pages and all that stuff. That from the everyday math.
Okay, but I'm sorry, but once again, you are not operating under a deficit that leaves you at the starting gate when everybody else has had a textbook for a year to take their placement test at the end of the year. The math that is being taught is sufficient for the purposes of that sweet blessed testing that you get in grade X. So
a school not having textbooks is like his issue the other night. Police officers not having uniforms. That's pathetic. Is there any way we can split the difference on the salary increases to put money back in so you can get textbooks?
We have grant money coming from Title I that we're using for
grant funds that Title I.
We're getting books.
Okay.
We're gonna get books.
We've already got.
Plus, there's a warrant article for books too every year.
The library, yes.
The library.
So that has nothing to do
Oh,
with
this is,
it.
okay, so it'd be different. You
Yeah.
can't buy that, books with that money, right? That-
No.
the library.
That's $5,000.
Right.
But what we're speaking to is that through Title I funds, we are going to be looking at, or, you know, in our day that we had with the staff professional day, a textbook, not through, through the funds, the Title I funds, so that we would have that. Am I correct? And the initial question, and we were kind of using it as an example when we kind of got off, but it was a good conversation, showing work and what, you know, everyone here is concerned with students, is that the copying, we asked about the amount of copying done. So hence, we're cautiously optimistic in that we will have the books, that there will be less copying done. Is that succinctly answer that?
The process is not at risk because a quote text does not exist. The copier is the compensation. Doug, you had a point.
The only thing I want to bring up to you is that Melissa Brown and Peg Gard are on the grant committee. And they're looking everywhere to find us grant money, and so is the grant committee. So we can keep your costs down. And they're looking everywhere, and they're finding equipment for the wood shop, finding it for the greenhouse. There, what else you got? Look, you're looking at. It's unbelievable. And that's what we're trying to do, to keep your costs down.
Grants are great, but if you get a commitment grant that they pay for like 1 year or 2 years, then you
we're
have to pay,
careful with that.
you know, the next 3 years after that, that's not so good sometimes.
No, that's our main concern. This is the first question the board asks. Is there future commitments to that grant? There is, and we're hesitant to go with it. I know where you're coming from.
Good. Sean, from your end, and Dennis, from your end, any other question or comment you want to offer on the Office of Principal?
Can I ask one thing? You said something about a commitment for grants. So is it something to the effect that, let's say they were to give you $10,000 for 2 years, but then after that you need to buy some sort of product or something?
No.
It's mostly a position.
To continue the program.
Correct.
Like the police had the grant that paid for, I think, 2 years.
Of the SRO?
And then we had a guarantee that we keep the officer employed for 2 years after that, I thought it was.
Gotcha.
Something like that. So it's a commitment grant. You're committing to your
Some
part
other
of it.
thing that will come on the tail.
Yeah, you're gonna commit that you're gonna sustain it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over
Thank you very much.
over 4 years, it costs you 25 cents on the dollar,
Sure.
but you pay full dollar in year 4.
Here it's just a slam dunk. You got the title funds for buying, you know, the math books that they asked about.
Then,
And sometimes with the federal grants, when you do a position, a lot of the federal grants are not to supplant your budget, but to supplement.
Sure.
So with those positions, after 3 years, it's not that now you've got to pay for it. If it's proven that it's effective, then you've needed it. So we can't, it now becomes a supplement because it's something that you now have in place that has been effective for students. So basically, you get to experiment with the federal money to see if that position is effective. So that's where that comes from.
then, that, anything else, Office of Principal? Tom?
I'm looking at lines from basically 55,500
Page.
down the bottom of the page.
Which page is that?
On page 14.
Thank you.
And basically the bottom of about 6 or 7 lines.
Travel.
Well, yeah, travel like elementary principal printing. It's, you know, fiscal year 17 actual was $59, and you know, budgeted last year was 100. Now you're asking for 500. Is it you really going to print that much extra this year over last year and the year before? And again, it's basically the same question for the principal office printing. Fiscal year 17, actual was 0. It might have got allocated somewhere else. But then 16 was 354. Now you're asking for 800. You know, basically double. You know, again, the principal travel, well, costs have gone up. Maybe that 300's okay. But then you go to little principal travel, that you doubled that when fiscal year 18 was 167. And elementary principal supplies went from basically 3,000 to you doubled it, actual on 17 of 3,000 to doubling it to 6. And you really expect these expenses to go up that much? I mean, some of them are, doubled or better.
We were running short on paper last year, so we determined, maybe we won't need it if we get the textbooks, but next year, that was what we did. We had put it in because I had under budgeted. I had moved some of the, I think if you look at the 1100, let me just see if I can see that. The supply line under 1156.10 used to be, like in FY17, it was 27,000. Then this year it was 10,000. So technically what I did was I took the paper costs and the office costs out of the regular education line, which is 1156.100, and put it into the administrative line.
Okay.
So it's kind of, if you add them both together, it's still under.
Okay. All right. It struck me as being some pretty large increases there.
Well, according to my secretary, I under budgeted for paper.
So you can blame her. I'm not blaming her. I'm trying to get clarification.
Yeah, no, of course, yes.
Yeah.
It's because I moved it around. That's basically what happened.
Yeah. Napoleon said, "An army travels on its stomach, a school district travels on paper."
Yep.
I think that is all the discussion on Office of Principal. That takes us to 2610, Operation and Maintenance, Custodian salaries, maintenance, supervision. Then we have the statistical stuff, dental, FICO, retirement, contracted services, which Stan may want to ask about. Who would like to speak on your side? Do you want to give an overview, Bob Adams, or?
Well, why don't we take Stan's question first? I may not be directed to me.
Far away, Stan.
Again, equal opportunity abuser. The first two lines, again, I'm going to ask how many people are involved in each one of them lines. I know there's more than one, so.
Yep. So the first line is 3.
Okay.
And the next line is a little bit more than 3.5. It's like 3.6.
Okay. So basically,
It's almost like.
so 3.5 positions represents the 19,273 increase from last year budget.
It's just like
How much? More.
More than
More, 6,000 better.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And they were making $8.
Some of them were making less than they could make at Cumberland Farms.
Again,
I know, they're just trying to.
and I'm actually doing you a favor by asking how many people that represents, because some people don't realize how many it does represent.
Yep.
Nate, did you want to add anything statistical, or Bob, did you want to give an overview? As, for example, my cheerful enthusiasm for technical stuff, your new floor waxing system and what it has accomplished.
I mean, there is a table in here for what each custodian makes. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I did see it, and it's not unreasonable. So
That's the new table.
Yeah,
That's not the old one.
It's like what Jan was saying. They were making less than
The old
9,000
one
an hour.
started, I think, 806?
836.
892, yeah.
892. Okay.
And Cumberland Farms was starting at people at $9. I asked them maybe one day, but it was no.
You know, it comes as no surprise, you pick up the newspaper, and I'm not saying anything disparaging about other schools, but Northfield and Wakefield could even get the school buses out. And right now, you know, and I respect you're the lens and the filter for the community, and you have to ask these questions, and it's important. But at the same time, as we're responding, we're looking at what these people are making, the difficulty in having them for jobs, and then trying to retain them for jobs and pay them somewhat so that you can compete. So what we tried to do is look at, as I said from the beginning, is pare down the staff and try to help those that were making the least pay.
If there is not another question on page 15, I'm turning over to page 16 and 17. Stan, did you want to as we leave page 16, to speak to the $800 for the softball field, or should I turn the page?
Oh, they should know what it costs, and they got a bill already.
Okay.
So
Then,
right.
again, we have water, sewage, and then snow removal, general care of the grounds, repair of buildings, the modular lease, insurance costs, the phone line for maintenance, travel, supplies, electricity, and that has the small sub note of 3-year average plus 6%. LP, and was it the town that had piggybacked onto the school supplier for the gas contract, or?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, fuel oil with a roundup on a 3-year average for market volatility. Anything on the rest of the items for 2610 operation and maintenance?
And I know the question was asked, and has been asked, that what is the upkeep as far as the ball field is? $1,200 as far as the one line, as far as fertilizer, $800 to keep the field watered, and it's $75 for the
backflow preventer.
For the backflow.
Oh,
preventer.
yes.
So it's about $2,000 to maintain the field, and that would be the case if we had a field anyway. I mean, if you have to have, you know, so we're grateful that we had that collegiality with the town and the townspeople and the people that gave it.
I did want to say with the town shutting down Lockhart, that field there, the backflow preventer that we're talking about came from the town and is now used at the elementary school.
Thank you, Andy.
Field. The controller for the water in that field is also at the elementary school now. Many of the heads were pulled from that field. Those are in the elementary school field. So there was one set of bleachers. So all of those items were redeployed from a field that the town shut down to
Bob and I met and made this list so that we not only see the field, but we see those other areas that he talked about here.
Oh. That brings us to 2710 transportation. The superintendent has already...
Wait. You're on to 2710. I had a question on the very first line on page 17 and the next line down. It looks to me like you're purchasing an item, a power lawn leaf vac, splitting the cost between the two schools.
Right.
Can you, someone sees $2,700 for a leaf blower, that's what they're gonna think? Can you give me
one of those big tow behind ones that goes behind a tractor with the giant hopper that picks up leaves with an extra motor on it? Like, what do you call it? Cyclone rake?
Like a cyclone rake.
But I think you need to tell the public what it represents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you know, like I said, you see a leaf vac, people are going to think that's
a little backpack blower.
Yeah.
It's a total hindsight,
It gets towed behind the John Deere that we have for mowing. So it allows you then to pick up fields. So if you get behind mowing, you're able to suck all that grass up. You can do all your leaf cleanings, both fall and spring.
And that would read, my understanding is the new softball field has been very carefully sodded.
No, was seed.
See, I'm sorry, well, hydro-seeded, sorry.
Yeah.
And the capacities and thoroughness of that new machine will protect the investment of the seeding.
Correct, that's one of the elements.
Okay, thought so. Does that answer the question on that machine?
Can we back up just 1 second?
Yes, sure.
I understand on these incredible jumps on salaries, while I also am empathetic to the current salaries. Is there any way we can split this up over the course of a couple of years so that we defray the initial impact on these salary jumps? I mean, or is that even possible, or does that even make any sense? It just seems like when you're asking $5,000 a person here, $10,000 a person there, $11,000 a person there, is there a way we can scale that over a course of 3 to 4 years? I mean, if you got good people, you got good people. They're not going to let this stop them from doing their job.
The chart in here is what the administration and school board worked with the staff concerned. Like I said, we used the monies that from where we reduced staff, and we restructured so that we could maintain these lower paid people in the spots that they have, the positions that they have. And I reiterated, you can't put, like you were saying about math books, how much instruction do you lose when you can't transport kids? You don't have kids coming for weeks at a time to school at the same time. So you have districts around us that weren't able to get their kids to school for weeks. So with there being a competition to retain people driving the bus, there was a real need to take a hard look at what we pay people. So that's the reason it was done in the way that it was, because we wanted to retain the best staff we could, and we wanted to ensure that our buses were going to run.
I mean, we did that with our police, with the retention, but we did it over many years. You know, like 6 years, if I'm right. And it didn't put such a burden on the taxpayers all at once. And we did that with our highway department. That went into a warrant article, and that's how that was funded. So I'm just throwing that out.
No, we appreciate it.
And I guess what he was piggybacking on with that too is, I mean, we had a lot of crisis come up this year with the bus drivers. With Wakefield, and with Custer, with everything, and with the money that was saved by not replacing people and all that. We had a little, I shouldn't call it a slush fund, but we had an excess that we didn't know we were going to have. It's like, let's do this, let's get it out of the way. So for next budget season, all this stuff is behind us. And we're not thinking, okay, here's another incremental. We have this money now, let's act on it. Get the people that deserve it paid, so that, okay, we're gonna bring you up, 27 cents every year for the next 7 years. So they're still at poverty level 7 years later when everything else is more expensive. Now people are on an even keel while we had that money to do it. If that makes any kind of sense. I know, it may not be the most fiscally responsible thing to shotgun it out there at once, but while we have it, let's do it, so we're not having this high turnover I was talking about before, and we spend more time training people than we do getting them back, get the money back to our district, because they're all set to go.
Doug, shoot.
Every one of when we made the separation from Wakefield, every one of our bus drivers got an offer to go to Wakefield for $18
I'm sorry, I believe that the conversation, the question was for the custodial.
But it's the same,
Okay,
it's
same
the same
thing.
thing.
Same thing, okay.
But that's,
Right.
those are the prices we
Oh, that's what it was. And, I
when
mean,
we separated from Wayfair.
yeah, they offered the bus drivers, you can all come over here for X amount of money.
Well, we couldn't.
We can't do that.
Couldn't do that.
And so we made a command decision, and after that happened, they went weeks without bus drivers. So I call that a pretty darn good decision we made to give these bus drivers the raises they needed.
Not only the bus drivers.
To keep them here as well as the custodian. But I'm just saying, those are the things we had to face last year. We had an emergency meeting, you have to be here in 2 hours, because this is a text that was thrown out from another town saying, let's take all your drivers. And this was what, 3 days before school started?
Yeah.
No, so it's like,
and
okay,
that-
what are we gonna do so we get our kids to school today?
I mean, if you look at what happened in Northwood, and all of the fallout and everything, and of course, the buck stops at the end, and there's a superintendent, but not that this is for that all of us made this decision, but we're responsible to make sure that these students are in school and these buses run. The amount of instructional time deferred, and you can't get kids to school, and there's another adjoining school, they went weeks. And double sets, you know, kids miss whatever, I'm not gonna go into specifics, but it's time deferred away from classes that these kids had, and all kinds of
They go to school into July.
buses.
Then my expectation, my understanding is from what the district is saying, both board and superintendent, is if you look at the transportation salaries and look at the maintenance salaries in the same fashion, both of those have been changed to bring people closer to that standard phrase, a living wage. One side of the argument would be you're hitting the budget with a 12-gauge shotgun shell. The school district response is, this is a 22 caliber bird shot.
Okay, we're getting close to our time here, so.
I know, I'm sorry, I thought I was in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, well,
I'm still in the middle of a sentence.
it's 5 minutes to 9.
Do you wish to continue your interruption?
Yes, I do,
Why?
because you're babbling.
I don't think I'm babbling.
I do,
Stan, I have never told you you were babbling.
because I don't.
The school board might take a different vote.
That's all right.
The items on the transportation line are similar to those in the maintenance line. The time is moving toward 9 o'clock. We have a few topics left. Stan, who is an early riser, usually asks for the meeting to end at 9 o'clock. When we finished the town budget, we were here until 9:30. Is there a motion to continue past 9 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it. To go past?
Yeah.
To finish.
To finish, yeah.
We're almost done.
Yeah, we're almost done. Yeah, no, I'll second that motion.
Motion on the floor.
Okay, move, seconded, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consensus. Then, let us go back to transportation. You had the explanation from the superintendent, you had Bob Adams' comments, and you have comments from Paul Steer. I am on page 17. I am presuming that the questions on 2610 are finished. We are on 2710. The topics are the salaries. We have the standard FICA retirement. We have DOT physicals, which are a special item. We have driver training. We have bus repairs. Tim Eldridge, you're here. Do you wish to speak anything to the transportation budget?
I'm just glad you're continuing on. I appreciate that.
Oh, okay.
I have a question. On line 52-110-2, the health insurance, it looks to be like a 25% increase. Can you give me some clarification why such a big jump?
27.
52,110,2.
The health insurance, transportation health insurance, it's up 10,319. All right, if you look at it, that's,
It's 27.5%, Stan.
yeah, so why such a high jump? If
That's,
we kept the same people,
yeah, they, instead of taking buyouts, they took plans.
Like you talked about earlier, you know, we project who's gonna be taking it. And sometimes they may, you know, we had a couple get married, so their plan may have changed, and that sort of stuff, so.
it seems like an awful big increase. I know that in general, health insurance went up.
Yes, you look at a $10,000 increase, that's one plan. That's going from a buyout to a buyout to a two-persons, well, it would be a single plan, so that's $6,000 per person I get to change.
Okay, that's it for me on that page.
Okay. That takes us to page, the last thing was transportation bus repairs. Then continuing on page 1819, transportation bus repairs, leases, and athletic trips, field trips, transportation insurance and supplies. Would anyone either, I don't know if you're involved in it, Tim, Superintendent, on what the district pattern is for the replacement of its transportation fleet?
There is a replacement schedule in your notebook there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure which page.
But I got a question, on these leases, do we own them for $1 at the end of the lease, or are they taking them back? How is the lease structured?
It's a 5-year lease, so you make, you know,
Yeah.
5 equal payments,
Right.
and then you own it.
All right, so you own it. Okay,
Page-
okay.
Page 43 is the,
And so with this cost for the new leases, is there a value for the old ones, or is that gonna be something that's gonna be like a private sale?
Yeah, in the past, we've just, we'll put it out for competitive bid. Generally, by the time we're getting rid of them, there's not much value left.
I agree, you know, 200 and something thousand miles and stuff, but depending what it is.
I just have a question, but go ahead.
No,
if you,
no.
No, on your fuel line, on town level, all townwide, our fuel lines all went down $10,000. Have you ever looked into? Because I know you probably buy your fuel through the state.
We do both the state and that WEX program.
Okay, because your fuel line is going up. I mean, do you use the WEX as much as you can, or do you hit the state pumps, or?
The larger buses, unfortunately, just because of where they are, and instead of, you know, wasting the extra time and gas for somebody to go to a station to fill that up, because we can't.
Because it's
you know,
diesel.
Go to Cumberland Farms to fill up the big buses.
Because it's diesel, and we don't have
Correct.
diesel in town.
Those buses generally fuel at the state garage, but most of actually all the vans are filling at the regular gas pumps.
Okay.
So.
Because I know like all of our big equipment actually fuels up at Cumberland Farms in Rochester, or
Yeah.
they go to Irvin in Wakefield.
Right, we certainly can. Like we have one driver just over a little bit into Farmington. So for her to go to the Irving to get the diesel, you know, it's a 5-minute drive. So
Because I mean, we've saved some quite a good chunk of money on the town side.
We just received, I'm sure you guys did too, but we received the notice that the unleaded fuel is no longer locked in at that high rate. So now they're at the going rate.
The state buy.
Correct. Yeah. So.
Okay.
So if they do end up fueling at the state, at least that's going to be a little bit cheaper. But we have increased, you know, the number of trips that we're doing and that sort of stuff. So consequently, we're using more fuel. That's part of that.
Okay.
I have one more question, if you don't mind. On the very last, on page 18, transportation special ed is going up $5,000, but it says in the notes, currently no students. So why would we be going up? I understand you got a budget for it, but why would we going up if we have currently no students at all?
Just to have one contractor come in and say we have to have a student transported that we can't transport for the year. Just one of those is running between 40 and 50,000. So 15 wouldn't even really touch that. But we have run into, over the years, got into a bind and needed the service. Thankfully, it hasn't been the full year that we've needed it, but there has been times that we've had to pull out of that. So we felt, again, knowing that it was best to put the extra in to cover the cost if it was to happen.
I'm done on 18.
Okay. Any other questions, observations? Thank you, Tim. That brings us over to another questions on 18 to page 19, the field trips, co-curricular, salary, FICA, retirement. Anything of note as a question or comment from the administration? Technology services.
I have a question.
Speak.
Technology services, 53400-0. It wasn't in the line, it was 0 previous years.
Correct.
This year, 13,340.35, that's a pretty specific number. Is that all your notes down below? Are you adding all that up to come to that number? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I don't see $13,000 down bottom there. Except you move line, I guess I should go read that line, 54,300. So 3,000, but still, I don't think it comes up to $13,000.
2 and 4 is 6, and 1 is 7, and 3 is 10, and 3 is 3,600. Just
so
add
okay, so it's a new part of it's a new line. You moved one line up, but one part of it's a new line. So this blackboard for $1,837. Backups for 4,000. What does that mean? Backup.
Backup is backing up the systems every night.
What are we doing now?
Oh, it's all of this. The alert now, the backups, the 40net, and the website were in a different line. So they're not new costs. They just moved into a different line.
Okay.
There is the PowerSchool hosting is a new cost.
So what does that consist of, the PowerSchool hosting?
It takes all the information we have off of our servers, which are very old, and it moves it to their servers where they host it. They take care of all the information. They back it up. They maintain it.
So you should know, last year we lost it. I don't know, you know that?
You lost the cloud?
We lost the server.
Children in the school, we lost all the info, and it was a complete nightmare. I mean, people worked untold hours trying to get the students' grades and the data.
Don't you back up every night, take out, at work, every day we change our, what do we call it, the piece we put in? The tape, it's not a tape no more, it's a...
Hard drive.
Yeah, so we change it. So if we have a problem, we just go back to the previous day and it's sitting in our hand. Don't you do something similar to that?
As far as I'm aware, we do, yeah.
So why would you have to spend all this time to reboot it basically when you had it all sitting in your hand? You know more about this than I do.
Because as far as I understand it, the server went and the backup server went as well.
We lost the servers.
We lost the server and the backup.
Right, but if you have, like if I walk in my office right now in the morning, there'll be another one that we put into the, because the one from the day before has already been taken out. So it's sitting in a safe. It can't, nothing's touching it.
So like typically today, people usually don't use hard drives or backups in that sense. A physical backup usually goes up to a cloud or it goes to another server elsewhere, and it's more of a ephemeral backup than it is an actual physical piece.
See, we have so we don't.
Thank you.
We might lose one day and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, John can, Scott's over here, but John can speak to the amount of work that had to be done.
Yeah, there was what happened was not only did the server at the SAU fail, but before it failed, there was a problem with the server that was corrupting the backup data. So when we got it back up, the data was gone, and it was the earliest backup we had was from February of 2015 or something, and this was all last year.
Yeah.
And we had to enter a lot of
Yeah, like
schools
the way we do it.
manually, and we still don't have a
Right.
lot of data. As a matter of fact, today I was trying to look for information for a fourth grader that we had, and I changed the years back to 2014, and it said no, I had nothing on the student.
Yeah, I would definitely make sure that, so it sounds like you guys are contracting out now to get that
Yeah.
functionality
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah, that's,
free consulting, I would definitely go and make sure that they actually test their backups regularly, so that you know that if you have to do this again, it will be there.
thank you.
Yeah. So the on that, the problem was there is no physical piece of plastic you can hold on to that tells you what it existed, and the machine, the server itself was typing perfectly. Its fingers were just one line up, and you got garbage. Then, for software, for new equipment, for the equipment for the lab, the rest of the technology services, any question from the committee for something that caught your eye? Bob?
No.
Okay. Sean, thank you for your comment. Tom?
I don't think so.
All right. Then, on line 2900, support services, we have workers' comp, the wellness incentive, FICA, unemployment.
Can't touch any of that.
Now, who can speak to what the wellness incentive is? Nate, again.
Okay, I'm gonna try to explain this. Basically, the health insurance that we have through school care has a wellness incentive program where for certain things you get reimbursed for it. Well, the IRS is saying that, well, previously they would get a check from school care. Well, the IRS is saying, no, we want to tax you on that money. So they changed the way they do it, and they give us that money, and then we have to tax it and treat it as a payroll.
So, that if you were a graduate student working on a doctorate, you will understand this next year. Okay, unemployment. Anything else on page 19? Thank you for the explanation. Stan, you're fine. Anybody else? Then, the sale of bonds and notes. Okay, means nothing to me. My presumption is that the numbers are accurate and they are driven by third-party interests, and they better be right.
You got the paper in your book there. But the good news is that payment goes away in August 15th of 20.
So
What's that on?
The bond in high school.
High school.
High school. Okay.
You're gonna save $270,000. 71, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Steve.
Then, line 5221, transfer to food service. Transfer for grant expenditures.
I like to go back to food service. Every year we look at that and say, we're losing money. And every year we get told it's going to get better next year. It's going to get better next year. It doesn't seem to get any better next year.
We are putting it out to bid this year. For next year.
And I'm also going to look at an area school, where I bid in, I combined two schools. We were a school and we combined with Lake George, and we ran our own. And we had one person in charge, and we kind of turned around, but I'm going to try to pursue it and see if somebody would go in with us. I can't understand all those years that, well, anyway.
Yeah.
When there was two schools, why they never pursued that. But the point being is we can go in either direction, and like Nate said, we're gonna put it out for bid, and then we're also gonna look at the possibility of going in with another school and doing our own and seeing where that leads us.
And there,
Lake George is pretty country.
Pardon?
Lake George is pretty country.
Yeah.
There are experiences over the border in the state of Maine where districts which have been providing across the board to all students both breakfast and lunch, they are getting rises or raises in their performance scores based on nothing more than a full stomach and a willingness to come to school. Something to consider. Transfer to food service. Any other comment? Transfer for grant expenditures on the IDEA, the Title I, the Title II, General Fund, and food service below it. Comments. Nate has said that there's going out to bid again. Food service new equipment can be tracked in the backup notes. Replaced equipment. What broke? One of the freezers probably.
Yeah, we've had freezer repair or a
The biggest
large refrigerator.
Mm-hmm. Then we are on page 20. We are looking at the fiscal year 16 actual of $9,375,147.59. The fiscal year 17 actual of $9,697,938.38, and the budgeted for fiscal year 18 and the proposed. Note that the fiscal 19 proposed is a reduction from the budgeted 18, and the fiscal 19 proposed budget is $10,325,000.
No, 328.
I'm sorry, I thought I got that. 10,328, 546.92, and that is down a little over 140,000.
A little clarity on that. Originally you said $15,000 less.
Yeah.
This says 140 less. What is the difference here? What do we?
If you take out the federal grants,
Okay.
that 125,792, because that's not, that's revenue for expenses. So if you back that out, it's the 15,000.
Okay. Because I did a little math, and it is $630,608 over 2017 actual.
It's because we didn't have the federal grants listed in that, and this one has it in it.
So it's not apples for apples.
Not for 16 and 17. For 18, I had to add that back in to show it in the expense report. Because technically it goes back to gross appropriating. So I have to put it in the expense so you see that so we can raise that amount, so we are allowed to spend it. But technically it comes out and goes into the 465 fund, which is the federal grants.
Okay. That, unless there's any other comment from either the board, the administration, or the budget committee itself, that ends the initial presentation. There is, as Nate pointed out from time to time, considerable backup information on this. We have our next meeting will be...
Not necessarily, Larry, because of the ZBA meeting. That may be a conflict.
Oh, Lord.
We can look on the calendar, Dana's calendar, see what she has written there.
Stan and I can continue our dynamic duo act on the ZBA as well. Well, he
Thank
is,
you, folks.
thank you for your time.
Thank
Everyone
you.
in the back row.
Bye, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Say goodnight individually.
Do we have the minutes of Tuesday, November 21st? And do you wish to work on them, or do you wish to have them slide away from us one more time?
Thanks, Bob.
Stan's not here.
Well, that's he would be one. Is that you want to slide him away?
Good night, Jane.
Okay.
Good night, John.
Then we can go. We'll leave number 3 alone, and while Stan is back,
She doesn't have the ZBA written on the board, so I don't know what day it is.
Can
I pass these out, get these passed out?
Here are copies of these, all the 21st, 21st. Pass them down. Okay, 21st.
Okay, we're good now.
Good. I like your typeface for draft. That, as we are here, we have 10 minutes left before the 9:30 where we left before. Is there any motion to approve the minutes of November 21st, or would you like to take it with you and review it in print at your leisure, or leisure for that matter? What's your preference?
I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the minutes of November 21st as written. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hang on.
No,
Hang on.
I'm voting no. I've seen mistakes in the minutes.
Oh, then that's what you make it now. Make your corrections.
Discussion.
We're voting about that.
Discuss.
We want discussion.
No. The chair apologizes for not
Saying it correctly.
giving you time enough to read and find a correction. The reason I said you want to take them with you and review them for corrections and additions was to do exactly that and get out of here at 9:30. Whoever made the motion to accept them can have who was the second?
Me.
You want to rescind the second?
I'll rescind the second.
You want to rescind the first?
I'll rescind it with a new motion to accept them with any changes.
Okay. Discussion. Any changes or
And be a
corrections?
second.
I second. with
Second.
Any changes?
Discussion. To accept with changes and corrections as may come. Tom?
WEX, I believe, is WEX, not WEKX. Next
What
to the
page?
Last page. Right above government building, Pat Smith.
Where?
It's, the third, no, it's next to the last page.
Down on the bottom, it's
Government
copy.
building, Pat Smith, just above that.
Hey, Tom. She's trying to make him as her talking. You guys.
So,
where was the Wix?
I don't know.
Which page was the Wex, Tom?
The bottom of page, what would be the first? Right above government buildings, Pat Smith, it is WEX program. Is there any
Close
other?
to the last page, I am not even seeing where Pat Smith.
Right above government building, Pat Smith.
I think it's the page before that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
It's 2 pages prior. I'm sorry, what?
Okay, any other corrections or additions to the minutes of November 21st? Okay?
No, I'm sorry, what? No.
You're fine. However, the question is, any corrections or additions beyond what Tom just said? No? Okay. On the vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes of November 21st with the spelling correction of WEXS for WEKS? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We don't have the minutes of December 4th, I take it?
No.
Any comments from either the public that's not here, but the school board can certainly be public if they wish. And what you want to do for potentially December 14th, do you want to hold it at December 14th and find out if we have to make a change?
Well, someone
If
has
the
to talk
ZB
to Dana.
If
I
the
know.
ZBA.
Because the ZBA has, just so you know, they have a case that's being reheard, and they have a definite date already issued to it. So that can't be moved.
Yeah, I thought that came in January, but
No, as far as I thought it was December, November, they said they weren't gonna be ready.
that the chair will find out if we're in conflict, and we'll discuss with the vice chair what is a possible useful day, and have the members contacted individually to see if they can meet a change date if necessary.
Are we not voting?
For the 14th of December, which is tentative at the moment. Next question would be, what is the pleasure of the board for its discussion when we do meet presumptively on the 14th? What do you want to do?
Discussion and possible reductions or voting.
Okay, then, the...
Warrant articles.
And warrant articles.
You got them already?
Yeah, the
We have it back from the lawyer.
We have it back from the lawyer. Through the DRA.
Okay, last point. The functional equivalent of the department heads. The principals, Tim Eldridge and Bob Adams, have presented their information. The superintendent and school board are sufficient for the rest. So we will try for the 14th. If there are any changes, we will try to make an acceptable date.
The thing I want to say about the 14th, I will not be able to meet with you after the 14th. The 14th will be my last day personally. I have to go in for major surgery.
Oh dear. Then you have our major good wishes.
So I probably won't be around for a little while.
You will take care of yourself.
I will.
And I give you my standard Merry Humbug ahead of time.
Well, Mr. Chairman, do you have a school board meeting the 13th?
Yes, we do.
That
I got
is...
December 12th. Or I can go, we have a regular board meeting the 19th.
That he would...
He wouldn't be able to come to that one.
If need be, we can make our school board meeting the 14th and meet with them on the 13th.
Was there a public hearing for that meeting?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
Well, we don't know, again.
So if you let us know, we can just
figure out
switch our date.
What's the
Yeah.
13th on, Bob?
Post that our board meeting.
It's a
is
Wednesday.
14th.
It's our normal
If
school
you
board
have
meeting.
this hearing,
I don't know when the ZBA is.
Okay.
but when will you know?
Tomorrow, we'll find out from
Yeah,
Dana.
yeah, Dana's the brains of the outfit. So I will find that out, and we will make sure that everybody is informed by email
You take it.
for what can be a good compromise.
What?
And
Motion to adjourn.
okay.
Tomorrow's gonna be.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you for your time.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Parking lot.
Thank you.
Probably work.
I'm-
And do we,
Seconded that, and later on
The
Tom.
chair
in order to
seconded.
make sure that